Chapter 601 Why Am I Reborn Again? Judging from the data on paper, I have completed the technology of projecting the memories in the history books. The problem is that I haven't tried it before, and I don't know what the success rate is. Looking at the large amount of data in his hand, Gu Shenhai also frowned a little helplessly. There are still many risks in testing this thing. After all, he was not using history books, but technology that he himself had not confirmed. Huh? Xiaobai came over. It had no place to go recently, and it had gone back to making tea for Gu Shenhai every day, mainly because of this finishing work alone. Gu Shenhai spent 15 years. Alexander also graduated from Gu Shenhai and now began to follow Jiang Hai to handle official duties. And over the years, the Netheril Empire has continued to develop and is about to rule the entire world. All kingdoms and empires have either surrendered or been beaten to pieces. The completion of the 3-year plan allowed the Netheril Empire to rapidly expand its national power. After another 2 years of recuperation, it became a powerful nation. Of course, this is not only due to the decree, but also to the Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry and the Ministry of Magic. After this combination of plans, the entire Netheril Empire has completely become a wizarding empire. For example, the 5 deans all work in the empire. After graduation, all wizard students are directly assigned to grassroots employment and enjoy corresponding treatment. With the current rate of expansion, there is no shortage of jobs. After gaining enough experience, they can be promoted and become the backbone of the empire. Now, the Netheril Empire has begun preparations to colonize other worlds. But because there are still some problems that have not been completed, it is only preparations and has no intention of actually starting. And even if they want to start, there is no way. The concentration of the magic tide is not enough to support them to open a world passage. It will not start until the magic concentration reaches the standard. Of course, you will have to face the world-destroying frost at that time. Gu Shenhai stopped interfering in these matters and let the empire run on its own. You're fine. Don't come over. You can't understand. Gu Shenhai watched the deer's head curiously come towards him and pushed it. In addition to Xiaobai following him, the 4 sacred beasts also returned to his body and went to recharge and study in the civilization system. Because they were no longer needed in the academy, they were naturally called back by Gu Shenhai. Gu Shenhai is not a person who is greedy for power, and he will not hold on to his power. Since someone can take the responsibility, let him hand it over to them. Yo! Xiaobai said that it couldn't understand it, but it didn't mean that it didn't know what it was. What? Do you want to be reborn again? Gu Shenhai teased. Of course Xiaobai shook his head. It was not stupid. If it was reborn, it could only be reborn in this world. There was no way to go back to the past. The power of the pages of history books is far inferior to the existence that Gu Shenhai relied on for his rebirth back then. So there is no way to go back to the first age. It's a pity that he has cleared his memory. He doesn't know what he used to go back to it, and he doesn't know what it came from. However, it is certain that it should be something powerful from a certain time type in the void. Even better than the first era is even stronger. Why did he bring it back when he had nothing to do? You stole other people's things and you dared to hang out at their door. Why? You think your life is too long. In fact, he was also betting, but found that no one came to his door. This was indeed beyond his expectation. I don't want to be reborn, so I use experimental products. That's right. Even the unlucky king of hunters doesn't know whether it's a blessing or a curse. Gu Shenhai didn't know what impact the Hunter King would have on the entire world community if he was really reborn. Anyway, it is certain that it has no impact on him. When he was not the world, a single world retrospective could not affect him, let alone that he has become a world. And time effects will not make him lost. Yo! Xiaobai said that it didn't know, so it shouldn't be tested. Gu Shenhai also smiled. That makes sense. Come on. You go inside me first, so as not to die halfway. It's true that he is immune, but Xiaobai is not immune. When Huan Yanshan used the history book to project memories back to the past, Xiaobai was also affected a lot and was directly moved to the time node and location where they entered. Then he was found by Huan Yanshan. After all, Huan Yanshan was already the only one in the world at that time, and he also issued a decree to find Gu Shenhai and Xiaobai. So Xiaobai was picked up by Huan Yanshan as soon as he came out. Otherwise, he would have to survive in the wilderness. After stuffing Xiaobai back into his body, Gu Shenhai started to take action. The leaves of the world tree serve as anchors to strengthen myself. Gu Shenhai was not affected, but it did not prevent him from wearing a piece of armor for himself. The next thing is the Sword of Victory and the Golden Ring. Which one should I use? If he used the Sword of Victory, he doubted that he might not be able to return to the era when the Hunter King was born. If he used the Golden Ring, he was worried about traveling to the era before the Hunter King was born. At that time, the memory cannot be adapted accurately, and it will just disappear. What if it is given to the wrong person? His technique of projecting memories into the past is not the historical version, but his own version. I would like to reproduce the version of the history of time, but the problem is that it cannot be reproduced. He is not a history of time. So how can he completely reproduce it? He can only learn it thoroughly and digest it to develop his own version. Actually, the best version is to let the Hunter King himself serve as the coordinates. This way, it is the most accurate. Gu Shenhai also has a solution. The problem is that the Hunter King simply won't leave his throne at this stage. Nor will he take risks for such a thing. For him, stabilizing the entire world community is what he should do. What's more, Gu Shenhai is also worried that if he really takes action and the experiment of destabilizing the world community is not successful, he will lose his wife and lose his troops. He needs a stable environment to become stronger, not a world full of danger. So he was not only thinking about what to do after success, but also what to do without the Hunter King. You can't just grab Jiang Hai to fill the hole. That's not good. Therefore, I can only choose one more. Then let's use the Sword of Victory. It's better to be late than not to find anyone at all. Gu Shenhai quickly chose an unlucky guy. As for whether he could succeed, it was still unknown. The experiment site is in the small world inside the leaves of the World Tree, which serves as sufficient protection to avoid being hurt. And the base is not in the Netheril Empire, but in a world that has gradually withered due to the world-destroying frost, and civilization no longer exists. As the experiment progressed, Gu Shenhai could clearly feel the flow of time. The leaves of the World Tree in front of him also showed a twisted appearance, which was obviously affected by time. Then without hesitation, he used the Golden Ring as a coordinate and began to send memories away. Wait a minute. The data seems wrong. Suddenly, he discovered that the Hunter King's memory was instantly shattered, and the time parameters were different from those on his paper. What went wrong? Gu Shenhai immediately stopped the experiment, but the result made him unable to stop. Hack. At this time, Gu Shenhai discovered something. The leaves of the World Tree seemed to be guided by some powerful force, and were moving towards the vortex of time. Why did something go wrong for me at this time? Why is there such a weird situation? Gu Shenhai naturally broke away immediately. With the help of the leaves of the World Tree, the technique that was originally just a memory projection into the past was directly transformed into a physical movement across time. As a result, he found that he had no way to escape because he had been locked in time. Then, the Golden Ring began to disintegrate, turning into countless rays of light to form an anchor point. In addition to the Golden Ring, the Sword of Victory also disintegrated. You two are from the same time period. That's not right. I have to run away now. Otherwise, I will have to go back to the past. Gu Shenhai frantically analyzed a large amount of data, and even opened a hole in the time protective layer formed by the leaves of the World Tree. This time, he was not imprisoned in the leaves of the World Tree, but the leaves of the World Tree activated the resistance to time and formed a protective layer to ensure that he could successfully complete the time travel. Not to mention, he is quite humane. Except that Gu Shenhai doesn't want to travel through time, even if it means traveling. He doesn't want to travel physically. You must know that he has taken some treasure, or some completed rebirth, from a certain existence in the void. If he does it again, he is afraid that he will not be caught on the spot. Otherwise, why is he studying the technology of memory projection into the past? In order to indirectly feed himself through time, instead of physically traveling through time. Even with the protection of the leaves of the World Tree, it is not safe. Hold on. Don't start the bus now. This is not a bus going to kindergarten. I have to get off immediately. Just as Gu Shenhai finished speaking, the small hole he opened in the time protective layer was smoothed away by a small hand. Dot! At this moment, he felt like he was getting cold. Then he very decisively tried to exit this world through the first era. It turns out that the first era is really not omnipotent, and he failed to leave this world successfully. I think there should be some way to save it. While Gu Shenhai was thinking, the leaves of the World Tree had already started moving, and he suddenly plunged into the time vortex. Gu Shenhai probably felt dizzy. A lot of scenes appeared in front of his eyes, and everything was going backwards. However, unlike the last time he was reborn, this time did not cause any harm to him, and it was all intercepted by the leaves of the World Tree. As for why it didn't have this function last time, Gu Shenhai suspected that the protective layer had been reinforced at this time. Help me! Gu Shenhai was a little confused as to why he should help him. Just as I was thinking about it, suddenly my eyes flashed and I saw a giant white object that could not be described in words passing through time. In a daze. Are you sure it's a snake? In addition, a large number of memories appeared in Gu Shenhai's mind. These memories were all upside down and looked very familiar. Damn it! This is not the memory I deleted when I was reborn in my previous life. This is the memory I met the real owner. Gu Shenhai didn't know what to say for a moment. And now it seemed that he could only wait to die. Looking up, he found a person lying on top of the time protection layer. He looked like a child, which made him a little creepy. It is this child who drives the leaves of the entire World Tree forward. I'm numb, Gu Shenhai thought. How about giving him a break? Before he could react, he saw a huge tail sweeping over from behind. That's right. It's the snake's tail. How could Gu Shenhai forget the white scales? After the memories that were removed from his previous life returned, he also remembered it. It was with this piece of snake scale that Gu Shenhai completed his rebirth. Boom! The snake's tail landed on the leaves of the World Tree, causing a huge movement. The good news is that the lying child was whipped away, and the big snake swimming in time went after the child. He didn't have to worry about being harmed. It seemed that the other party's hatred was greater than his own. So he escaped. The bad news is that as the tail came down, his protective layer of World Tree leaves opened a large gap while accelerating. And with the current momentum, it may not be possible to stay at the original anchor point. It doesn't matter. You can go anywhere. The problem is that the big cracks in the protective layer of time are terrible. It seems we have to get off the bus early. Otherwise it will be terrible. Gu Shenhai was also a little helpless. What appeared before his eyes now was no longer the era of binary stars. Just a few seconds ago, the entire world had reunited. This shows that the original world community was not innate, but was caused by certain reasons. Goodbye! Gu Shenhai abandoned the leaves of the World Tree without hesitation, then forcibly tore open the time vortex and entered the time node directly. The time point he is currently in is before and after the world is shattered. It's not that he wanted to make this choice. Of course, he wanted to forcefully land when the world was more complete. The problem was that the time coming in from the cracks forced him to run away in advance. Otherwise, he would also have to go backwards. After all, this is a trip to the past, so naturally it will gradually go back. After breaking free from time, he soon entered the world, and what he saw was a sea of fire. I don't know at what point in time the World Tree fell. I hope I have better luck and can hold on until I come. Gu Shenhai sighed, feeling a little helpless. He himself can't protect himself, let alone the leaves of the World Tree. But the leaves of the World Tree have a layer of time protection. Even if there is a big gap, there should not be any big problems relying on himself. Might as well consider his own safety. So, where is this place? Gu Shenhai didn't quite understand, but he was certain that he was at the time after the birth of the Golden Ring and the Sword of Victory. Not at the time of their birth. This is barely good news. Maybe he can find the Hunter King in his youth. Wait a minute. I seem to have found where the leaves of the World Tree are? Gu Shenhai murmured quietly as he looked at the entire world that was engulfed in flames. Chapter 602 The Collapse of the Twilight World of the Gods. The entire world was divided into 9 areas hanging on a World Tree. It was precisely because the World Tree was on fire that the entire world fell into a sea of fire. Now, not only is the World Tree on fire, but even the roots have been chewed off by something, and the entire tree is in danger of dying. At the same time, the entire world is also collapsing, but the speed may be slower, and it will take enough time. After the collapse, it will be the world community that Gu Shenhai saw. At the current speed, Gu Shenhai predicts that it will take about 10 to 100 years. After all, the world is so big. How can it disappear so quickly? Why does this scene look so familiar? Gu Shenhai always felt as if he had seen it somewhere before. In the sky, a giant ship made of dead men's nails passed by. Countless dead souls were taken away and drifted into the distance together. Fingernails and dead souls? Gu Shenhai condensed and immediately moved over to intercept the giant ship. As soon as it landed, he ran into one of his questions. I think that all living things have nails in their bodies because of this giant ship. Even if it is still intact now, It will definitely be broken for some reason in the future. Who are you? Came a cold voice. A strange humanoid creature stopped Gu Shanhai, who had just boarded the boat. Half of her body is gentle and beautiful, while the other half is rotten and hideous like a demon. Nail ship. Half man. Half corpse? Who are you? Gu Shanhai couldn't remember much. The goddess of death. The queen of Helheim in the underworld, the other party said in a deep voice. Are you Hel or Hela? Gu Shanhai remembered it instantly, and then looked at the ship. So it is the Ninjurfa, the big ship in the underworld? At this moment, Gu Shanhai understood everything. Everything that made him feel so miserable. You are not the Ace of Protoss. Nor are you the Warder Protoss. Who are you? Hela looked a little confused. In her eyes, Gu Shanhai was definitely not a mortal. Otherwise, it would be impossible to board such a large ship made of the nails of the dead. After hearing the names of the Ace of Protoss and the Warder Protoss, Gu Shanhai finally got the evidence. This is the final scene of Norse mythology. Ragnarok. In other words, the entire celestial world community is the world after the collapse of Nordic mythology. At this time, he also understood the origin of the Sword of Victory and the Golden Ring. The Sword of Victory is the Sword of Frey, the god of sunlight and the god of fertility. Carrying this sword can make you invincible. Unfortunately, the god of sunlight and fertility gave the Sword of Victory to the giantess Gerda in order to marry him. The matchmaker Skirnir, after losing this Sword of Victory, had to use antlers to fight the fire giant King Surtur. The end is also conceivable. Naturally, he died completely. In the end, the fire giant King Surtur burned the world tree. And this world tree is the leaf that carried Gu Shanhai to this era, and eventually formed 9 worlds in the past years. As for the gold ring, its origin is even greater. In Nordic mythology, there is only one ring that can enchant people's hearts, and that is the Nibelung ring made by the evil dwarf with the magic gold of the Rhine River, which indirectly caused the disaster of Ragnarok. As for the Hunter King who was carrying the ring of Nibelung, Gu Shanhai also guessed his true identity at this time. He may be a shadow of Odin. From the 8-legged horse to the 2 hounds. But unfortunately the raven is missing. Perhaps because there is no way to condense it. Odin, himself, is the leader of a being called the Wild Hunt, which is a group of ghostly or supernatural hunters chasing their prey in the wild. Ghost Hunter is very similar to Wild Hunt. As for the King of Hunters being the real Odin, that's impossible, because Odin is dead. Died in the mouth of the demon wolf Fenrir. Me? A passerby who came here because of some minor accident. Gu Shanhai sighed. This time it was really unlucky. When Hela drove Njilfa away, it meant that the War of the Gods was over. It was too late. He couldn't find Odin now. However, he also has some doubts. If the world tree in Nordic mythology is a closed loop caused by him reversing time again, then how did it happen in the previous life? After all, the leaves of this world tree do not exist locally, but are a leaf from a certain mother. This means that without his intervention, this world will not evolve into the world tree. Then nothing will exist. After all, this world is supported by the world tree and 9 big worlds are constructed. So this creates a strange paradox. Of course, Gu Shanhai suspected that it was probably caused by historical revisions. After all, this is a big world with a certain ability to correct itself, especially since Nordic mythology involves fate and destiny. A passerby? Okay, then please leave Njurfa. I am about to sail away from this world that is about to be destroyed, Hela said calmly. It seemed that she had no intention of taking Gu Shanhai away. In Ragnarok, there were not many survivors, whether it was the people who caused this apocalypse or the Protoss that perished because of it. Luckily, most of them were dead. As for those who caused the turmoil, in addition to being dead, there are also some who are missing, such as Hela, the god of death, Surtur, the fire giant king who burned down the world tree, or gnawed the roots of the world tree to sound the doomsday, Nidhogg the horned dragon. You can't leave. The world is being broken, Gu Shanhai said calmly. The main reason is that he fell in love with this big ship named Njurfa. This thing is probably the life seed of future generations. Under the current situation, even the gods cannot survive, let alone other races. Therefore, this big ship of the dead, in essence, it carries the hope of a new civilization. Although the world is collapsing, it is not completely dead, because the main body is the world tree, which saved itself before dying, and successfully saved itself, becoming a celestial world community. In addition, Gu Shenhai was still thinking about what the binary celestial body was. It should not be born yet. Najerfa has the power to travel through the world. I have found other worlds. If you don't leave, I will make you a part of Najerfa. Hila is like a corpse. And there is no wave in the ancient well. She is actually giving Gu Shenhai a step up. She can't see the depth of Gu Shenhai at all. So this means that she can let Gu Shenhai leave this world together with Najerfa. After all, Gu Shenhai was not an Asa Protoss, and was not the target of her hatred. And it would be very good to get some help. Her father Loki, brothers Jormungand and Fenrir are all dead. It's a pity that Gu Shenhai doesn't want to leave. Because the one who can't leave is neither her nor Gu Shenhai. Gu Shenhai traveled back in time to who knows how many years ago. At this time, even the first era was lost in him. At this point in time, even the first era has not yet been born. So how can he return with the help of the power of the first era? In fact, he was also cursing a little in his heart. This thing is not very powerful. Why can't it transcend time? Gu Shenhai didn't know what to say at this time. It stands to reason that First Era has this ability. At least, he was able to do it in the third version of his previous life. Oh, it's only the first version now. Gu Shenhai was unable to complain at this time. The main reason should be that two beings were involved this time. And why do I feel so much more relaxed after arriving in this world? Feeling a sense of relief? Gu Shenhai didn't know what to say for a moment. But it doesn't matter. They all have this virtue anyway. Now Gu Shenhai has completely got rid of the first era. It can't be said that he has escaped. It can only be said that he has successfully resigned. In addition, the wonderful fate method has also become invalid because of this. And all its causes and effects cannot be connected. If you want to reactivate it, you have to live back or find a way to travel back in time. Now is not the time to think about these things, but to think about how to survive. Okay, I won't bother you anymore. Gu Shenhai didn't force it, nor did he intend to leave with Hila. The other party was determined not to leave this world. In fact, after Ragnarok in Nordic mythology, it is not the end. At the southern end of the destroyed world, there is a brand new world that no one has ever reached. And the remaining gods come here to recuperate. At least this world may not completely collapse within 100 or even 1,000 years. The world tree is still very vulnerable to burning. As long as the world tree is not completely burned to death, the entire world will only be in the stage of collapse. Gu Shenhai left Najerfa directly. He liked it very much and wanted it. But he never thought about taking action. This thing has no meaning to him. If he wants, he can make it himself. He also has dead man's nails. They have been extracted from the bodies of various races. It is very easy to clone them. There is no need to worry about the construction technology. He just scanned his spiritual sense and reverse engineered all the data. The ship itself does not have much use. It is originally used for transportation. It travels through the world to transport the frost giants of Jotunheim and the fire giants of Muspelheim and carry the demon wolf Fenrir to attack Asgard. Virtue. Therefore, its own effect is limited. The real power is because Najelpha carries too many powerful beings. And it is essentially a means of transportation. It can only be said that the Aesir were really unlucky. First, the god of light, Baldur, died, and Fried lost the sword of victory. More importantly, Valhalla, the Hall of Valor, perished because of the Ring of the Nibelungs. The greatest means of dealing with the twilight of the gods is gone. Fortunately, Loki, the culprit, also died miserably. Heimdall had his head chopped off. Of course, the fallen head also killed Heimdall. Then I wish you good luck. Unknown passerby. Hela did not stop Gu Shenhai, but watched Gu Shenhai leave with vigilance. Although she had invited her, it was only a tactful request. In essence, she did not want Gu Shenhai to leave with Najerfa. After Gu Shenhai left Najerfa, he traveled through the Sea of Fire. It must be said that the fire was quite capable. After all, it was released by the Fire Giant King's demon sword called the Branch of Destruction, which could burn down the world tree. Special flame. Therefore, it naturally affected Gu Shenhai, causing some cracks on his skin. Fortunately, the cracks were not big and they healed instantly. But they would appear again. There is no need to worry about this small crack leaking the aura of one's identity as a person in the world. But now, it probably doesn't matter if it is leaked. After all, this world has no time to take care of itself. So how could it have the spare power to target him? The collapse of this world at this time cannot be solved by swallowing Gu Shenhai, but the backbone that supports the entire world The world tree is broken. Even if the big world wanted to devour him, it didn't have the ability to do so. How could a paraplegic with a broken spine eat him? Gu Shanhai did not intend to devour the world this time, but chose to be more cautious. Because there is no way out. This is really a trap that has no edge. He couldn't escape through the first era, and he didn't know what was going on in the world around him. If he acted randomly, something would definitely go wrong. I don't know if the wise giant Mimir is dead. If he is still alive, he should know something. Looking at Najerfa, the nail ship sailing away, Gu Shanhai also muttered in a low voice. But even if Mimir is still alive now, he probably only has one head left. According to records, Mimir was taken as a hostage to Vanaheim, where the Vanna clan lived, and was later beheaded by Vanaheim. However, there are also records that Mimir was not completely dead. It is said that Odin once talked with Mimir's head to discuss how to solve Ragnarok. The world is a bit big, and this fire also has an impact on my spiritual consciousness and perception. Gu Shanhai frowned. The flames that burned the entire world could naturally burn away his perception and spiritual consciousness. Every time he probed, you can feel the heat, and over time, it will really burn. If nothing unexpected happens, even if Mimir is still alive, he is either in Valiscarvri, Odin's Hall of Silver, or in Jotunheim, where the second root of the world tree goes deep. Jotunheim is the kingdom of the ice giants. There is a spring of knowledge and wisdom at the root of the world tree. Mimir is the owner of this spring. Drinking the spring water has gained a lot of wisdom. So he is a wise giant. It's just fate and destiny that even his wisdom can't get rid of. Gu Shanhai even suspects that the fate caused by the twilight of the gods and the collapse of the world is the fault of the world tree, or the devil behind the world tree. Let's go to Odin's Silver Hall, Valiscaf, to see it first. If Mimir was still alive, Gu Shanhai would still prefer that his head be placed in Odin's Hall of Silver, Valiscarv. After all, Odin would definitely keep such a wise man by his side so that he can display all his wisdom. Chapter 603 covered. Third timeline. Sure enough, the hunting star, one of the binary celestial bodies, is Odin's Hall of Silver, Valiscarv. Gu Shanhai's building looked a little distorted due to the burning of the flames, but he could still see the palace of the Hunter King. The appearance, especially the high throne, will remain standing into the future. The supreme throne of Hilitskilav, where Odin sits, can see the entire 9 realms. So it turns out that the Hunter King relies on the Silver Hall and the Supreme Throne to monitor everything in the entire magic tidal radiation area. It's a pity that it is incomplete after all. The intact Silver Hall and the Supreme Throne can overlook the 9 realms. The later hunting star naturally does not have this function. After all, it was damaged. How could it still have its original power? After walking around a lot, Gu Shanhai didn't find anything like a burnt head or a pile of ashes. The Hall of Silver and the Supreme Throne are still very strong. Even under such terrifying flames, the degree of damage is not very high. It should still be usable. I don't know if the flames will block the line of sight. Gu Shanhai wanted to sit on the Supreme Throne to have a glimpse of what the whole world was like. As soon as he sat on it, he saw that the Najerfa, a large ship made of the nails of the dead, exploded into countless pieces in an instant when it was about to leave the world, and finally broke into pieces at the extreme south of the world. The death goddess Hela also met a bad end and died on the spot. Even Odin, the king of gods, can die. So why can't she, the goddess of death, not die? Even Helheim, the country of death, is only one of the 9 realms and is ruled by Odin. However, with the fall of Najerfa and the death goddess Hela, a brand new world opened up at the extreme south of the world. The flames burning the world were finally forced to open a large circle by the power of death. The goddess of death. This thing is a plot kill, right? Gu Shanhai complained. Otherwise, why would the goddess of death's divine power be able to extinguish this flame? Even Gu Shanhai's skin can burn into cracks. She is much weaker than Gu Shanhai and simply does not have enough strength to do it. Only plot killing or fate can do it. Just like this, the current destiny is almost gone. Perhaps after guiding the remaining gods to this new world area, they will disappear completely. As for the dead man's nails, after they take root, they wait for an opportunity. As long as there is enough opportunity, they will take root and sprout. Gu Shanhai quickly ignored this place. After all, it had just been born. Everything was very immature, and it still needed some time to grow. In addition, He saw Loki with his body and head separated on the Rainbow Bridge, and Heimdall, who fell to the ground. Heimdall had a large dent in his chest, which was hit by Loki's head. The natural cause of death was this. In addition, Thor, who died together with Jormungandr, was also seen. The other party's Thor Hammer Mjolnir was not with him, but was carried by his two sons Mani and Modi. They were considered survivors. Or, Jormungandr was forcibly smashed to death by Thor with Thor's hammer. As for the cause of Thor's death, it was because of Jormungandr's venom, and he eventually died after killing Jormungandr. In addition, there is Tyr, the god of war, who died together with Garm, the HL dog. Huh? Odin's eternal spear Gungnir is still in Fenrir's mouth? Gu Shenhai also saw the bodies of Odin and the demon wolf Fenrir. The two of them did not die together, but Odin was bitten to death by Fenrir. It was actually Odin's son, Vidal, the god of the forest, and Thor who killed the demon wolf Fenrir with the eternal spear Gungnir. Both of your sons are survivors of the Asa clan. Okay. These are all good for me. Gu Shenhai quickly recorded the locations of all these people. Gods or monsters. In the flames. These corpses had not been burned and were still lifelike. Obviously, the divine body is not so easily burned by the flames of the fire giant King Suturt's branch of destruction. This thing should be specifically aimed at the world itself. For other gods or people, it is very powerful, but has no specialization. So if you want to burn it, it's not that easy. Wait a minute. Where's the poisonous dragon Nidhogg? I remember he's not dead either. He's hiding somewhere and eating corpses. Gu Shenhai's eyes narrowed. And then he disappeared. But now he can be sure that he is not dead. Because before the Hercules Mandi, the god of courage Modi, and the forest Vidal found the new world. This guy has been hiding and nibbling. Eat the corpse and wait until they are settled before leaving. Gu Shenhai doesn't know where he is going. After all, there is no record of the whereabouts of the poisonous dragon Nidhogg in his previous life. Like Hela, it is an unsolved mystery. But it is said that it seems to be because he is carrying too many corpses. Carrying heavy weight, he finally sank into the abyss. But judging from Hela's fate, the poisonous dragon Nidhogg probably won't escape death either. Wait a minute. I didn't create the King of Hunters. Right. Gu Shenhai felt a little bit confused. If this was the case, after ignoring the origin of the world tree, a closed loop was created. What about Frostar? Let's take this as an assumption for now, without mentioning why Gu Shenhai built it. The hunting star can use the Hall of Silver and the Supreme Throne. The Hunter King can use the remnants of Odin. And the Ghost Hunter is simpler, although Valhalla has already destroyed. But Gu Shenhai was still confident of recovery. No, I assume what this thing is doing is not really to complete the closed loop. And to say it's a closed loop, maybe it's more like a covered second timeline. Gu Shenhai also quickly realized that this was probably not a time-closed loop, but a timeline overlay. Time's technology has never been about time closure, but timeline coverage. He traveled back in time with the leaves of the world tree and reshaped a new timeline. In other words, this is actually the third timeline. The first is the wizarding world before Gu Shenhai was reborn, which is the most orthodox timeline. As a result, because of his rebirth interference, this timeline was affected by the emergence of the Netheril Empire, causing a butterfly effect, and the wizarding world could not appear. So this is the second timeline. Now in his third timeline, Gu Shenhai came to the era of Ragnarok. So with his arrival, he didn't know what changes would happen next. Therefore, the closed time loop does not exist at all. Even if Gu Shenhai does not go, there will be survivors who will create a binary celestial body to stabilize the world community. But Gu Shenhai didn't know how long this time lasted. That's not right. What is the fire? Gu Shenhai suddenly remembered that the core of the hunting star is the fire. This can't be the flame that destroys the world. Right? That's definitely not the case. Because if this flame is used, how can the Frost of Destruction be an opponent? These two should be allies. And together, they will destroy the world and the community. Therefore, Gu Shenhai prefers not the flame that burns the world, but the flame obtained from other places. Gu Shenhai sat on the supreme throne and thought. Except for the flames burning his skin. It was actually pretty good. After all, the field of vision was very wide, and he could see everything. Before he could figure out the reason, he saw one thing. That is, he saw traces of the poisonous dragon Nidhogg, who was eating the corpse. This thing says it's a dragon, but it's actually a snake. And it's a giant snake. Gu Shanhai looked at the huge black dragon with 2 wings. Wherever it passed, it continued to advance with a large number of venomous snakes, gathering corpses. Along the way, he climbed up from the 3rd root of the 9 realms, carrying a large number of corpses on his back, and was not afraid of flames. I see. This thing finished eating the roots of the world tree not long ago, and it's just coming out now. As for coming out beforehand, Nidhogg was not stupid. If he really wanted to come out, he might not have hit the battlefield head-on. Whether it was the Sea of Giants, the gods, or the descendants of Loki, each of them was an extremely powerful existence. If it came out, it would definitely get no benefits. So it didn't come out until Ragnarok came and everything settled. You're not good at work, but you're number 1 at cooking. Right? Gu Shanhai couldn't help but sneered. If it weren't for Gu Shanhai, he would have let it succeed. But now that Gu Shanhai is here, it is impossible to leave these corpses to him. Gu Shanhai still has use for him. A mythical world, even a world that has passed the mythical age and is about to be destroyed, still has great value. In particular, there are no divisions in the strength level in this world, and there are all kinds of impressive powers. If Gu Shanhai obtains them, he may be able to use this system to become stronger, such as completing his memory projection that has reached the limit. Technology of the past. He just wants to project his memory into the past to catch the bug, and doesn't want the whole person to travel back in time. Fortunately, the past he traveled back to this time was too far in the past. Otherwise, if he really traveled back to the time when he first came, the two of them might have stared at each other. Is the timeline closed? Thinking of this, an idea suddenly appeared in Gu Shanhai's mind. He got the point. That's right. It means closing the timeline, so that I am the only one in the entire timeline. I am the only thing that exists. Past, present, and future. Well, this thing seems a bit far away. With my energy, I can't support it at all. Create a new folder, and then eat the ashes. Gu Shanhai is very rational. It is not that easy to complete this matter at all. At least it will have to wait until he masters the technology of memory projection. Of course, if he plans to use the pitted version, that's fine. But the problem is that he doesn't have a second world tree leaf to use as a time protection layer to protect himself. If you really use it, you can basically conclude that you are dead. Go and capture Nidhogg first. Otherwise he will crawl to Jotunheim. It just so happens that I am going to Jotunheim too. Gu Shanhai could not see the situation of the Fountain of Wisdom and Knowledge using the Supreme Throne, because the second root was crushed and his eyes could not peek through the Supreme Throne. As for using spiritual consciousness, the distance is too far, and the spiritual consciousness will burn up by then. Both of them specialize in the world. Gu Shanhai complained. The world-destroying thrust has this virtue, and even the flames that burn the world have this virtue. He stood up and left the Supreme Throne, and in an instant he reached the path that the poisonous dragon Nidhogg climbed up. Before the poisonous dragon could react, he raised his foot and kicked the opponent in the head. The majestic force fell on Nidhogg's forehead, directly kicking him into a terrifying dent. In addition to the injury, but also because of the force, the poisonous dragon Nidhogg, who was climbing on the flame-filled world tree, was kicked back to the bottom. Nidhogg didn't realize what happened at all. He only felt severe pain. However, the physical body is still very strong, and the injury on the forehead quickly begins to recover. And then it rushes forward again full of anger. It is here to take revenge. The terrifying venom also spewed out. Even though no trace of Gu Shanhai was found, the venom rose like a flood, and even the flames were extinguished. However, the trunk of the world tree that came into contact with the venom was burned by the flames. In addition, the wash of venom made him even more depressed. Gu Shanhai was a little surprised when he saw this. He didn't expect that the poisonous dragon Nidhogg still had 2 brushes. I don't know if I can absorb everything in my sleeve. Gu Shanhai had no intention of hiding, let alone letting go of the poison. He wanted to collect all the venom and put it into his body to see if it could be used as a material or resource, or to evolve a new race through the venom. With a flick of his long sleeves, the flood of venom was comparable to that of the entire world tree, and before it could reach Gu Shanhai's side, it was all swept up by his green sleeves. Nidhogg didn't feel anything at first. After all, he couldn't see, so he just had to spit out venom. But as time passed, I felt something was wrong. Could it be that Jormungandr is not dead? Nidhogg immediately thought of the huge sea snake that could surround the world. But before he could complete his guess, He saw a small figure approaching it. There is no breath, no taste, and except for what can be seen with eyes, no other senses can tell who it is. You just spat in my face, right? Gu Shanhai looked at Nidhogg with an evil tone. But his aura was not weakened because of the huge physical difference between the two sides. Nidhogg's eyes were wary, and he was a little confused. This man was definitely not a god, and he was certainly not a giant. He was more like a mortal from Midar Tri. However, it is just like, but not really a mortal. How can a mortal be able to walk through flames and call its venom saliva? Seeing as you are not going to admit it. Okay, I will let you know today why the flowers are red. Gu Shanhai sneered. Chapter 6 for the Wisdom Giant Mimir. Nidhogg struggled continuously as Gu Shanhai's hand was pinched. It is indeed a poisonous snake. The dragon is probably because it has wings. Gu Shanhai has always been curious about Nidhogg's race. There are many names for it, such as giant snake, poisonous dragon, black dragon, etc. From Gu Shanhai's point of view, preferring poisonous snakes, of course poisonous dragons can also be used, because this thing is indeed very poisonous. Do you know where you were born? Gu Shanhai asked directly as he looked at the poisonous dragon Nidhogg, who had been shrunk to the size of a loach. It's just strange. How could Yggdrasil allow the poisonous dragon Nidhogg to grow? Oh, no. It's not actually letting go. Nidhogg also has an old enemy. The Eagle Vidforner has a grudge against each other. The reason is because of something. A squirrel named Ratatosk often passed jealous words between them. It is because of communication problems that the two sides have fights from time to time. If the Eagle Vidforner had been more powerful and directly killed the poisonous dragon Nidhogg, there would be no follow-up. Unfortunately, not only could they not be killed, both of them seemed to be dead because of Ragnarok. Regarding Gu Shanhai's doubts, Poison Dragon Nidhogg was also a little confused. How was he born? How does it know this? It has been gnawing at the World Tree since its birth. It has no experience of struggle, and it did not evolve from a small poisonous snake bit by bit. From the moment it was born, it was the poisonous dragon Nidhogg. It used to gnaw at the World Tree, and after Ragnarok, it gnawed at corpses. It can be called a top foodie. Gu Shanhai also saw Nidhogg's doubts, and he also understood that this guy should also be a born divine type. His heels were born from heaven and earth, and if he pursues his words, he is also created by the world. Then there will be no more doubts. In the ghost world, such a congenital creature can be so deceitful. It is not a problem that Nidhogg is driven by fate and destroys the world he is endued to his instinct to eat. What's more, Gu Shanhai suspected that the roots of the World Tree were food for the poisonous dragon Nidhogg. If he didn't eat them, he would starve to death. Gu Shanhai was not thinking about helping Nidhogg clear his name, but he was thinking about how to eat such a big snake after studying it. Or should we say let it go? In terms of size, it is definitely not as big as Jormungandr. But the problem is that Jormungandr is already dead. Besides, from the perspective of rarity, Jormungandr's body is definitely more valuable than Nidhogg. After all, Jormungandr can surround the entire world and kill Thor. Nidhogg's record is there, and it's not small. In any case, it's also eating the World Tree. But it's all side combat power, and the frontal combat power is gone. So Gu Shanhai naturally valued Jormungandr more. So, what else are you useful for? Gu Shanhai asked. I hope Nidhogg the poison dragon can give other values besides research value. The poisonous dragon Nidhogg is also becoming more and more confused. How does he know what value he has? Devouring the World Tree? It has already finished this task, and there is no extra World Tree for it to chew on. Even if there is, it is impossible to give it to it. It is knowing the value of the World Tree. I know the whereabouts of the head of the wise giant Mimir. Do you think I need it? After a long silence, the poisonous dragon Nidhogg finally spoke. I need it. But the question is, why do I need you to tell me? Gu Shanhai also knew about Mimir's situation from the poisonous dragon Nidhogg. There is a high probability that he is still alive. So there is no need to let the poisonous dragon Nidhogg go open his mouth, and he could find it himself. What do you want? Poison dragon Nidhogg didn't know what to say for a moment. It has no wealth, nor anything that Gu Shanhai needs. It seems that there is nothing he wants. Gu Shanhai thought for a while. Even the poisonous dragon Nidhogg was his. So anything belonging to the other party was not his. For a moment, the poisonous dragon Nuld stopped talking, as if because he had no answer. It had seen many mortals from Midgard, but it had never seen such a special Gu Shanhai. It seems that you don't have anything to say. What a pity. Gu Shanhai sighed, then held it in his hand, squeezed it until he fainted, and stuffed it back into his body. He also knew where Mimir was. Through the memory of the poisonous dragon Nidhogg, he quickly found Mimir's location. It is not clear whether the poisoned dragon Nidhogg is dead or alive. But one thing is certain. That is, Mimir finally returned to the position of the fountain of knowledge and wisdom. From the memory of the poisonous dragon Nidhogg, he saw that Mimir had only one head left, which was buried alone by the roots of the fallen world tree at the location of the fountain of knowledge and wisdom. Gu Shanhai quickly arrived at the location. At this time, the fountain of knowledge and wisdom had been completely covered up and turned into ruins. The spring water that could originally give people knowledge and wisdom has long evaporated in the sea of fire. According to the deduced location, the head buried in the soil was quickly dug out. Mimir was already on the verge of death, and when he saw that he was no longer able to survive, Gu Shanhai hurriedly gave him a healing spell to bring him back from the brink of death. It's you, Mimir said suddenly. Do you know me? Gu Shanhai asked. I have seen your appearance from the fountain of knowledge and wisdom. You did not look like this at that time. Mimir was like a riddler. You mean the world tree? Gu Shanhai didn't think it was the fountain of knowledge and wisdom. He thought it was because of the world tree. Yes, it is Yggdrasil, who created the fountain of knowledge and wisdom, Mimir replied. Yggdrasil is the name of the world tree. It's interesting. So you didn't expect me to come? Gu Shanhai asked curiously. Mimir was silent for a moment, and then said, No, I just saw your figure. I never thought I would meet you. But from the fountain of knowledge and wisdom, I saw your figure across the entire river of time. Mimir seemed to have lost his body and only had one head left. Some kind of change had occurred, allowing him to pass through the world tree and see the past and future in the fountain of knowledge and wisdom. This made Gu Shanhai's pupils shrink. Crossing the river of time? Can you tell me how you did it? Gu Shanhai knew that if Mimir did not lie, then he might have completed the technology of projecting memories into the past, and used this to continuously cover the timeline, and was used this third timeline as an anchor. I don't know. Your figure is too terrifying. I don't dare to get close at all. Mimir didn't lie. He knew that Gu Shanhai was special. It's such a pity. Gu Shanhai believed that Mimir was telling the truth. With Mimir's power, the other party had no ability to lie to him. So, do you have any other plans now? Gu Shanhai asked. Can I ask if you know the origin of Yggdrasil? Mimir asked. Why do you want to know this? Gu Shanhai was a little confused as to why he suddenly asked about this. However, it is certain that the existence in the void should be much more powerful than this world of Nordic mythology. This world may even be deliberately guided out. As for the senior time traveler or the reborn boss, Gu Shanhai didn't care. Because I want to know the origin of everything. I think you should know. Right, Mimir said with some hope. Gu Shanhai suspected that Mimir must have seen something the moment the world tree burned. And it was something extraordinary. I don't know. Gu Shanhai chose to lie, considering Mimir's situation. If he really knew the truth, going crazy would be the best option. If he was noticed, the timeline would change again. At Gu Shanhai's level, changing the timeline can rely on indirect methods. But in the hands of those beings in the void, time and the world are just like plasticine, allowing them to knead it at will. If Gu Shanhai breaks through the current bottleneck and reaches transcendence, he may be able to possess this kind of power. The reason why it is possible is that he doesn't know yet. That's such a pity, Mimir also said with some regret. He also did not suspect that Gu Shanhai was lying. In Mimir's eyes, there was no need for Gu Shanhai to lie to him. Knowing too much is sometimes not a good thing, Gu Shanhai said calmly. Gu Shanhai quickly completed the inspection of Mimir's head. The other party was not dead, but he did see an indescribable existence in the void and received a certain amount of pollution. And he could not solve this pollution. Therefore, it is actually a big disaster. And the best way is to kill it directly. It was precisely because of the existence of this pollution that Gu Shanhai didn't dare to directly search for souls. If he really saw something he shouldn't have seen, he wouldn't be able to forgive it. After all, his backstage first era has not yet been born. And he has no one to support him even if he wants to. Of course. I know. Of course I know. The world is about to collapse. Can you save it? Mimir asked with a strange tone. No. Judging from your appearance, I should have it. Gu Shanhai's expression remained unchanged. But he had a hunch in his heart. Could the method Mimir said be a binary star? when I absorbed all the water vapor from the fountain of knowledge and wisdom before it was evaporated by the flames. Yggdrasil gave me a way to sustain the entire world, allowing the world to survive, even in fragments. Come down, Mimir said. Gu Shanhai now has another doubt. In the original timeline, he was not there to save Mimir. So under normal logic he must die. And if Mimir dies, who proposes and implements the matter of maintaining the world community of binary stars? Chapter 605. All of this is the Riddler's guidance. Mimir's plan was, as expected, a binary celestial body, exactly as he had guessed. The hunting star uses Odin, the Hall of Silver, and the High Throne as its main materials. But they need to find the dwarf Masoniel. Masoniel is extraordinary. It was made by Odin and his brothers Willy and Phil using the blood of the giant Brimir and the limbs of Brian. So it is also called an amazing sculpture. He is known as the dwarf ancestor. Only he can successfully build it. Of course, this is to stabilize the world that is about to be broken. Before that, Frost Star is needed to extinguish the flames. Otherwise, even if the world is stabilized, this never-ending flame will turn the world into a scorched earth. As for the raw materials, the best one is of course Brimir, the ancestor of the Frost Giants. However, the problem is that the person cannot be found. Maybe he is dead. So it still needs to be determined. So, we still have to find the dwarf Masoniel? He may not be alive yet. To be honest, Suturn has a higher chance of being alive than him. Gu Shanhai complained that he did not agree with Mimir's plan at all. The reason was also very simple. Because it was unrealistic. You ask a dwarf to do these things. Not to mention whether the other person is still alive. Even if he is still alive, he can't do it. Because Mimir really only had one plan. And he had no idea how to build a double-star celestial body. The top made demands, and the bottom had to fight for their lives. Gnomes are indeed good at making this. Whether it is Odin's Gungnir's gun or Thor's Mjolnir, they are all made by dwarves. So if Mimir wanted to build a hunting double star, he naturally had to go to the dwarves. The idea is good, but it feels like something is not good after the brain is contaminated. The prerequisite for asking the dwarf to help build it is that the dwarf is still alive. In the current situation, very few people can survive. Even if there are dwarfs who can survive, they may not have the craftsmanship and technology to build a binary celestial body. Suturn is dead long ago. Although he released this flame with the branch of destruction, how could he ignite Yggdrasil without himself as a sacrifice? Mimir responded. But there was indeed no refutation of what he said before. And he now realized that if the dwarf died, everything would be useless. We can only take a look first. If we can find a living dwarf, it would be the best. If not, then I'll do it myself. Gu Shanhai is also somewhat interested in creating a double-star celestial body. But the premise is that Mimir must give him enough help, such as relevant technology. Otherwise, if he is asked to build it from scratch, he will have no interest at all. There should be memories in Mimir's mind. But Gu Shanhai didn't dare to look at it. After all, it involved pollution, and he would rather not have anything to do with the existence in the void. This is not a good thing. If Masoniel is dead, I can only ask you. Mimir only has one head left. Naturally, he has no choice but to rely on external objects. It is true that he has wisdom, but if it cannot be realized, it is just like a decoration. As for talking about mental power interfering with external objects, and soul power condensing into reality, Mimir does not have this ability at all. If he had, how could he end up in this situation? Nordic mythology is a myth, not a novel. It serves the story, not the logic. If we really look at it logically, Odin will be bitten to death by the demon wolf Fenrir. As a result, Fenrir will be killed by Odin's son, the forest god Vidal. And first, he will be trampled on the soles of his feet by iron boots. And then how can you argue with someone who was stabbed to death with Gungnir's gun? How much do you know about Masoniel? Gu Shanhai asked. I don't know much about him, and my interactions with him are relatively small. He didn't know Mimir either. We need to go to Svartalfheim, the country of the dwarves. We just want to go. We have to avoid the poisonous dragon Hodnig. Its venom is very dangerous. If you are contaminated, I have no way to deal with it. You know, its venom can even kill Yggdrasil. Corrosion, even for Odin, requires caution. Mimir warned. In various myths, novels and other stories, the characters in the plots have great fluctuations in strength. After all, they are to serve the plot, and coupled with the cognitive problems of the ancients, It will look a bit strange. It's like a scene in Journey to the West, where Sun Wukong couldn't even break a crouching tiger stone with his golden cudgel, but it was able to stir up heaven and earth. Therefore, the actual combat power changes according to the progress of the plot. I understand, Gu Shanhai said vaguely. He had not told Mimir before that he had put away the poisonous dragon Hodening. I have seen the 9 realms from the Supreme Throne before. The situation in Svartalfheim is not optimistic, so you should not have too much hope. Gu Shanhai did not hide it, but told the truth. Anyway, when he used the Supreme Throne to look at the 9 realms trapped in the Sea of Fire, there was not much life, so the survival rate of Mysonial was not much at all. It doesn't matter. Just try your best. Mimir didn't force it. First of all, it is not that the entire world is just the collapse of the World Tree, causing it to collapse and fall into boundless flames, as well as the invasion of giants, Loki's revenge and other actions. Therefore, the entire 9 realms were dragged into the war. Not only Asgard was affected. This time the war is all out. Not only the Anna Protoss, where Odin is located, but also Vanaheim, where the Wasa Protoss is located, has been affected. Mimir still had confidence when he first obtained the knowledge of binary stars, but after seeing the real tragedy, his confidence immediately fell back to the bottom. If you want to build something, you must at least have someone. In this situation, where can you find someone? Let Gu Shanhai do the work. He had also thought about it, but he also had doubts about Gu Shanhai's skills. Even if he has the technology, if Gu Shanhai is allowed to build it slowly by himself, how long will it take to build it? Binary celestial bodies are very large and are not so easy to succeed. Then we must do our best. No matter how much I can do, I can't help. Gu Shanhai was thinking of staying here and not planning to go to other worlds, provided that he could do his best. But he is also thinking about one thing. If Mimir is not lying, seeing his figure in the long river of time proves the success of the project of projecting his memory into the past. However, the project must need an anchor point. The World Tree and the world. The leaves are gone. So what does he use as an anchor? Use yourself? Still use binary celestial bodies. Gu Shanhai prefers the latter. As for the possibility, he doesn't know. He has the structure and partial data of the binary star object, but he can't really copy the original binary star object. He doesn't even have the firepower of the hunting star. He doesn't know anything, let alone what Frost Star is. I have to say that this thing is indeed a big pit. First, I used Frost to extinguish the fire. As a result, the Frost had no way to solve it and turned into the world-destroying Frost, which still harmed the world. But the good news is that the world-destroying Frost has a hunting star. Suppression. There is still a world that can handle it. Wherever there is a flame like this, it doesn't matter how much it burns. It would be great if Odin was still alive. With his wisdom, he might be able to see more. Mimir sighed and said, compared to Mimir, the knowledge Odin gained was far better than that of the wise giant. After all, the price paid was also high, and as a god king, he could see more. If he were still alive, there would be no Ragnarok. Gu Shanhai said that this thing is a plot killer and no one can stop it. Everything is dictated by fate. Mimir could only say this. Otherwise it would be hard for him to say anything. While on the road, Gu Shanhai and Mimir also chatted without a word. And during this period, they also asked for some information overtly and covertly. Mimir also saw it. He did not hide it, because hiding it was of no use. The 9 realms were on fire, whether it was gods or humans. In his eyes, they were already dead. There was nothing to hide. The 2 non-humans soon arrived at Svartalfheim. In fact, there was nothing interesting to see. Nothing more than a wilderness burned by flames. After walking around for a long time, I found nothing but corpses on the ground. There are no survivors. I'm afraid you will be disappointed this time, Gu Shanhai said. Then there is no other way. Let's collect the corpses of Odin and the others first. Seeing this, Mimir saw that there were no ordinary dwarves, let alone Mysonial, the ancestor of the dwarves. No problem. I can see it very clearly from the Supreme Throne. Gu Shanhai was not interested in finding Mysonial, but he was asked to pick up the bodies of Odin, Thor, Fenrir, etc. Then his interest will be great. Mimir was a little weird. He felt that Gu Shanhai seemed a little excited, and he always felt that something was weird. The process of picking out these corpses was still very smooth, without the poisonous dragon Hodening to snatch them away. No one would want these corpses at all. Well, because all the people might be dead. You don't seem to be from this era? Mimir watched Gu Shanhai put Odin into his arms. Not to mention, this scene was quite shocking. After all, stuffing a burly man into his clothes was shocking no matter how he looked at it. A little strange. Huh? How do you know? Gu Shanhai was a little curious, but he kept working and put the demon wolf Fenrir into his arms together with the Gungnir gun in its mouth. He had no intention of hiding it from Mimir because there was no point in doing so. Even if Mimir knew about it. So what? Could he still beat him? The reason why time travelers and reborn people want to hide themselves in the early stages is because the benefits of such behavior are too great. And once leaked, it will inevitably lead to disaster. Gu Shanhai is different now. He is about to become a disaster. As for those terrifying existences outside the void, the other party doesn't care at all. Travelers and reborn people are very rare in the world. But if the base number is large, then there is nothing rare. Not to mention that these existences themselves can create people like time travelers and reborn people. Not to mention them. Gu Shanhai can do it now. But the risk is a bit high, because he is not sure whether he can successfully travel to other worlds and come out of the river of time completely. To sum up, the service is good, but the after-sales service is not guaranteed. The only thing that can be guaranteed is 0 negative reviews. You can tell, especially the style of clothes. There are no clothes like yours in the 9 realms. Mimir had actually known this for a long time, and just wanted to use this topic to continue the conversation. Don't tell me. You are really discerning. Gu Shanhai also smiled, and then said, I come from later generations. Yes, Yggdrasil helped me. There was just a small problem on the way. The world tree returned to the past. When I landed, it was already like this. Gu Shanhai didn't say how small this issue was, and that it was not suitable for Mimir to hear. Mimir's brain was originally in trouble due to pollution. If he heard these things again, what if he couldn't stand the stimulation and went crazy? It didn't matter if he was crazy. Gu Shanhai could bury him after giving him a slap on the forehead. He was worried that if it was contaminated and distorted, it would be bad luck. After all, Mimir was currently being held by Gu Shanhai, so if he became deformed, he would definitely have to attack him as soon as possible. I see. Then have you seen Hela and Najerfa? Where did she go? Mimir asked abruptly. Did you peek at the script? Gu Shanhai complained. This guy had been at the Fountain of Knowledge and Wisdom in Jotunheim since the beginning of Ragnarok. How could he know the situation of the battle? And now he actually asked Hela and Najer? Where has the law gone? No. I just got some inspiration from the 3 goddesses of destiny. Mimir also answered straightforwardly. There is a large ship Najerfa that can travel through the world, and Hela is the goddess of death, so she will not die so easily. Unfortunately, they are all dead. Gu Shanhai described in detail the scene he saw on the Supreme Throne. Mimir didn't react much. If he died, he would die. What else could he do? Then the question came back. You are from the afterlife. So what is the afterlife like? This is his main purpose. Well, my life was actually pretty bad. Gu Shanhai summarized the situation. In other words, my plan can succeed, but the price will be very high, causing the fragmented world to continue reincarnation and destruction. Mimir also has mixed feelings about this. Later, when I heard about the severance of the Asa Protoss, the Water Protoss, the giant tribe, etc., I sighed a little, but didn't say much. It's already very good to be able to stabilize the world. How dare you ask for so much more? Gu Shanhai was also a little confused about this. It would be fine to say that Odin didn't know, but Mimir, the 3 goddesses of destiny, etc. might be able to see some of it. In the end, none of them tried to stop them, and just looked at the world while being the Riddler. It's a bit strange to destroy something and then think about making amends afterwards. Chapter 606, After so long, the healing technique finally comes in handy. I'm glad to see you're okay. Mimir. Vidal, the god of the forest, looked surprised when he saw Mimir's head in Gu Shanhai's hand. He didn't expect to see each other here. As the orphan of Odin, Vidal actually knew the whereabouts of Mimir. However, after the Doomsday War, Odin's death, the collapse and burning of the World Tree, etc., all made him exhausted, and he thought that it was Mimir's whereabouts. He was already dead, so he was very surprised when he saw Mimir. Actually, I only almost returned to Yggdrasil. Fortunately, I met Gu. If it hadn't been for him, maybe you would have needed to dig me out under the Fountain of Knowledge and Wisdom. Mimir also joked. introduced Gu Shenhai by the way, but not his full name, just his surname. Moreover, Mimir did not tell the origin of Gu Shenhai. After all, it was not suitable for Vidal to know such things. Thank you, Gu. If it weren't for you, we would have lost a wise man who led us. Vidal was also very happy. This is rare good news during this time. I'm looking for other survivors, but under the flames, maybe we are the only ones left alive. Although Vidal didn't know where Gu Shenhai came from, in this situation, it was unlikely that there would be intrigue. After all, everyone's survival was the first priority. The 9 realms are huge. Even if they have collapsed and been engulfed in flames, there must be other survivors, Mimir said to comfort him. Yes, so I plan to go to the Silver Hall and search through the Supreme Throne to see if there are any other survivors. At this time, Vidal couldn't care too much about the fact that this was his father's throne. After all, his father was dead. In fact, at the beginning, Gu Shenhai was a little surprised as to why Vidal didn't collect Odin's body. Now that he thought about it, it was probably fate that guided Vidal to kill the demon wolf Fenrir. And he was the destined god in the new world. In fact, Vidal is not only the god of the forest, but also known as the god of silence because of his taciturn nature. But now Vidal is not silent at all. This can be regarded as the aftermath of the disaster. Well, this disaster has not passed yet. This place is not close to Asgard. If we want to go, we need to beware of the poisonous dragon Hodunig, Mimir said with some worry. Although Yggdrasil is still holding on, the 9 realms have completely collapsed. I don't even know where Asgard has fallen. Vidal also showed a helpless expression. Don't worry. I know where it is. I passed by Asgard before. Gu Shenhai also spoke. He knew that Mimir wanted him to lead the way. Otherwise, with Vidal wandering around like a headless fly, it would be very good to bump into them. Not to mention finding Asgard and heading to the Hall of Silver. You actually know? Vidal looked surprised. Even a veteran from the 9 worlds like him didn't know that you, a person who jumped out of nowhere, actually knew. However, he did not question it, but believed that it was Mimir who brought him. Well, yes, I know. Gu Shenhai naturally would not refute. He did know. That's great. Please, Gu. The surprise on Vidal's face faded away and became filled with surprise. It's just that the distance is a bit far, and there are a lot of insurmountable abyss in the middle. So we need a convenient enough means of transportation. Gu Shenhai didn't bother to walk over. Judging from the situation of Mimir and Vidal, it must be okay. It would be great if Fry was still here. With his skid plan A, we could easily cross over. But it's a pity that Fry died in Saturt's hands. And even Skid Plan A also it's damaged, Vidal said regretfully. Skid Plan A is a treasure ship made by dwarves. It can be enlarged or reduced at will. When expanded, it can even hold all the gods and all their weapons. When reduced, it can be stored in a pocket. I picked up a snake that spit at me before. It can be used as a temporary mount, Gu Shenhai said, taking out a winged snake from his arms. Mimir's eyes twitched when he saw the scene. He had seen many treasures that could store items or shrink items at will. But this was the first time for Gu Shenhai to move in and out of his arms. Isn't it a bit small? Vidal hesitated. It's almost like a loach. So I'm afraid it won't work. Don't worry. It's reduced. Gu Shenhai said that he acted in a measured manner. Mimir felt that the winged snake on Gu Shenhai's hand seemed a bit familiar. Before Gu Shenhai could zoom in, he recognized it. This is the poisonous dragon Hodunig. Mimir's voice was 3 tones higher, and his head had an obvious look of hacking HL. Really? I don't know. It's very famous here, but it's not famous in my remote mountainous area. Gu Shenhai finished speaking calmly and casually zoomed in on the poisonous dragon Nidhogg. The huge poisonous dragon showed its original size, turned around and bit Gu Shenhai and others. Seeing this, Gu Shenhai's face darkened. Sure enough, the time was too short and he hadn't transformed into his shape yet. And now he dared to bite back. You damn dare to kick me. Gu Shenhai took out the 7-star whip, raised his hand, and swung it away. The poisonous dragon Nidhogg was whipped all over the floor by the 7-star whip on the spot. According to the normal force, he would have been whipped into minced flesh at the end, and then whipped away. However, Gu Shenhai controlled the force, so this thing was just rolling on the ground in pain. Mimir looked at this scene and stopped talking twice before finally speaking. The poisonous dragon Hodunig does not have hooves, so he cannot kick. You've been holding it in for a long time, And you just said this. Gu Shanhai was also a little confused. He didn't expect Mimir to make such a complaint. Then what should I say? Mimir also asked teasingly. The doll on the side also looked a little dumbfounded. Of course. It might be because he had such a serious expression and his face was a bit paralyzed. So he couldn't see the changes in his emotions. But when he saw Gu Shanhai whipping the poisonous dragon Nidhogg, he was obviously stunned. He is very powerful. But he is indeed no match for Nidhogg. If he really had the power to kill Nidhogg, he would have done it long ago. How could he watch Nidhogg eat the World Tree? You must know that the turning point of the Doomsday battle at Ragnarok was when the World Tree was gnawed away by the poisonous dragon Nidhogg. Without this, Ragnarok would have been extended indefinitely. I thought you had something to say, but I didn't expect you were just complaining. Gu Shanhai glanced at Nidhogg, who got up and spat out his words to him. And his face darkened again. You don't have any tutoring at all, but you still dare to talk to him? I stick out my tongue and make faces. Very well. Today I have to let you know what politeness means. After saying that, the 7-star whip in Gu Shanhai's hand fell on Nidhogg, making a crackling sound. With each stroke of the whip, a large number of scales on Nidhogg's body would be shattered, and the areas without scale protection would naturally be ripped apart and dripping with blood. Fortunately, the blood on Nidhogg's body is venom, so there is no need to worry about the color being harmonized. I think Nidhogg may be begging for mercy. Seeing this, the doll reminded him that he didn't feel sorry for the poisonous dragon Nidhogg. He was afraid that if Gu Shanhai beat Nidhogg to death, they would know Mount will pass by later. Not to mention, using Nidhogg is still very convenient. This thing is not small in size, and it is not slow in nature. The force with which Gu Shanhai struck made him afraid. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. It is just not convinced. You are still stubborn now, and refuse to ask for mercy. Whenever it opens its mouth, I know what it is thinking. Gu Shanhai said that he has experience in this kind of thing. The doll glanced at Nidhogg, whose head had been deformed. He felt that Gu Shanhai was simply angry because he lost face, and wanted to vent his anger on Nidhogg. As far as Nidhogg's injuries were concerned, there was nothing he could do even if he wanted to beg for mercy. It was very difficult to spit out the letter just now. But now it is impossible to spit out the words, because just now Gu Shanhai whipped its letter into pulp. Otherwise, you can wait until we get to Asgard before you do it? Mimir was still experienced, and saw Gu Shanhai's thoughts right away. The so-called euphemistic way of saying that we should hurry up first. Anyway, the poisonous dragon Nidhogg is here. On your hands. After finishing the work, if you are tired of smoking, just let the doll do it. When Gu Shanhai heard this, he nodded. Okay, then I'll give you some face. After finishing speaking, he turned to look at Nidhogg again and said in a very bad tone, I will write it down this time. If I do it again next time, I will not only make up for this whipping, but also double the punishment. Nidhogg nodded hurriedly. He naturally knew that if he was not valuable this time, he would definitely not die if he was beaten. But this torture would definitely make it worse than death and painful. Just remember it. Don't forget to eat or fight. It won't be so easy next time. Seeing this, Gu Shanhai also softened his expression. After hearing Gu Shanhai's words, Nidhogg also breathed a sigh of relief. The other party didn't plan to continue torturing him. Otherwise it would really be unbearable. But now that he is covered in wounds, it may not be so easy to successfully reach Asgard. Vidal, do you have any healing treasures? Mimir asked. He definitely didn't have any treasures. There was only one head left in his body. Even if he had one, there would be no place to put it. Vidal shook his head. No. He doesn't have any treasures on him. If he can survive, he is already very powerful. It is too naive to want any treasures. It's okay. I know the healing arts. Gu Shanhai couldn't help but look happy, thinking about his original position, which was as an auxiliary, good at auras and specializing in healing arts. However, up to now, this treatment technique is very good except that it has no therapeutic effect. Now it is rare to meet a wounded person, and there is no way to get timely information. This is a coincidence. The doll and Mimir didn't feel anything at all. But the poisonous dragon Nidhogg looked a little strange. It always felt that Gu Shanhai might not be that simple. The problem is that it wants to resist. But there is no way to resist. There is no room for it to speak now. Let alone it cannot speak now. He could only watch helplessly as Gu Shanhai threw a healing spell at it. It was nothing at first. Then it became numb and itchy. The messy flesh and blood squirmed visibly to the naked eye, and a large number of granulations grew crazily like weeds. Moreover, these granulations were pale white and very twisted. Ahem. Are you sure this is a healing technique? Mimir said helplessly. The current poisonous dragon Nidhogg's body is covered with a large number of squirming fleshy tentacles, which bind him tightly. However, the treatment effect was excellent. The poisonous dragon Nidhogg, who was originally dying and had difficulty raising his head, was able to continue struggling for his life after being treated. After all, if you don't struggle at this time, then you may not need to struggle and just go to the ground. Gu Shanhai's treatment technique emphasizes natural selection. Then a large number of tentacle granulations began to gather. At first glance, they looked like tumors. But if you look more closely, they turned out to be snake-like heads. And it is giving birth to its own consciousness. Yes, this is what Gu Shanhai's natural selection means. If Nidhogg fails to eliminate the consciousness of these heads, then it will split into a large number of independent consciousnesses. This situation is quite satisfactory. The real unlucky one is Nidhogg. Dahug was overtaken by these new consciousnesses. By then, this will no longer be the poisonous dragon Nidhogg, but a brand new creature. It can be called a hydra or a 100-headed snake. Anyway, it will be called a snake as many as it has heads. Gu Shanhai also doesn't need to be named. Of course, this is a healing technique. Just tell me whether the effect is good or not. Gu Shanhai thought. As long as the healing technique can cure. As for saying that other additional effects are better than the therapeutic effect, that is his freedom. This is his healing technique. How can he let outsiders dictate? Not to mention the many effects. Even if he wants to add special effects such as burning, freezing, etc., that is also his business. The effect is very good, but I always feel that it is different from the normal treatment. Mimir took a look at it, and there was really no way to refute it. Although it was a little different. But the result was normal. It was okay. That's right. Don't worry about details or anything like that. Those who achieve great things don't stick to trivial matters. Gu Shanhai said that he is this kind of person who doesn't stick to trivial matters. Mimir also didn't know how to evaluate Gu Shanhai's comments. The effect is indeed very good. The poisonous dragon Nidhogg was almost dead after being whipped before, but he was rescued all of a sudden. And judging from the intensity of his struggle, he was really alive and well. This is no longer a matter of details. Mimir sighed. This was about changing the species of the poisonous dragon Nidhogg. Chapter 607 Finnbull Winter. The poisonous dragon Nidhogg still has some tricks, and he has fought his way through the many new consciousnesses that intend to replace him. Just after I came out, I seemed a little bit out of sorts mentally, but it didn't matter. As long as I obeyed, it would be okay. With a group of people quickly returning to the fallen Asgard, Vidal went to the supreme throne to find others, while Gu Shanhai and Mimir were wandering around. During the exchange between the two, they were already preparing to start the Double Star Celestial Body Project. Before, Mimir did not believe that Gu Shanhai was capable enough to create it. But after experiencing the incident with the poisonous dragon Nidhogg, Mimir naturally changed his mind. By the way, now the poisonous dragon Nidhogg has 8 heads and only 1 consciousness. How are you going to deal with it? Mimir asked. Yes, this is what's wrong with Nidhogg. From a poisonous dragon to a hydra. The normal hydra has 9 consciousnesses, but now it only has 1 consciousness. As a result, Nidhogg is now a little unable to control himself. He bumped into each other on the way to Asgard, and almost bumped into him several times. How to deal with it? This is indeed difficult. Gu Shanhai pondered for a long time, and finally clapped his hands. Yes, or let it change the name to Hydra. Well, Hydra. Anyway, this thing is also from the Greek god system, so it can be modified and used. It shouldn't be that far from Northern Europe to Greece. This doesn't seem to be a problem with the name. Mimir was also a little speechless. Who asked you your name? The problem now is that the poisonous dragon Nidhogg has a poor sense of direction. Don't worry. Nidhogg will definitely be willing to change his name to this, Gu Shanhai said confidently. Mimir could see that Gu Shanhai was pretending to be stupid, but he did not continue, but changed the topic. I don't know if Vidal is willing to let the corpses of the gods be used by us to stabilize the situation. Live in the world. Are you thinking about this? You might as well think about how to put out the fire. Gu Shanhai didn't care about Vidal's thoughts at all. Mimir has also thought about it for a long time. If this world-destroying flame cannot be extinguished, even the best plan will not be implemented. Even Jotunheim has become a sea of fire. I'm afraid nothing can extinguish this flame, Mimir said with some regret. Don't worry. I know what can extinguish the flames. Vidal came over and said immediately. He seemed to know something about Mimer's plan. You're quite prepared. Gu Shenhai didn't blame the other party for eavesdropping or anything. Nor did he ask what the other party knew. Anyway, if he was willing to speak, that's fine. The winter of Fimbul. After the death of Baldur. After the 3 winters we experienced. Odin once collected these 3 long cold winters. Vidal explained. The winter of Fimbul is an important event in Norse mythology. It is a long, cold winter that will end many lives in the world. And there is no intervening summer. This winter season represents the beginning of Ragnarok, which occurs before Ragnarok. There will be 3 consecutive winters in Fimbul's winter. Namely the winter of wind, the winter of sword, and the winter of wolf. During this period, ice and snow blow from all directions. There will be countless wars, and brothers will kill each other. The death of Baldur, the god of light, led to the Fimbul winter. During these 3 dark and long winters, the sun lost its heat, and strong cold winds blew from all directions. During Fimbul winter, spring, summer, and autumn disappear, and all days are cold and dark. Gu Shenhai didn't know the specific reason, and he didn't know much. The death of Baldur, the god of light, was also planned by Loki. At the beginning, Baldur dreamed of the shadow of death, and then Queen Frigga ran around the world, asking all creatures to swear an oath not to harm Baldur. Don't tell me. This queen's face must have been given to everything. However, there was an omission left. That is, the mistletoe on the east side of Valhalla. The Hall of Valhalla did not swear an oath. The reason was that Queen Frigga thought that the mistletoe was too weak and not threatening, so she did not make it swear. As a result, tragedy happened. Loki became jealous of Baldur's favor, and then transformed into an old woman and went to inquire about the Queen Frigga and got the answer. After obtaining this mistletoe, he coaxed the blind god of darkness Hodr, who was the twin brother of the god of light, Baldur, into projection. In the end, the god of light, Baldur, died at the hands of the god of darkness, Hodr. It was precisely because of this incident that Loki and his heirs were punished. First, his son Vala was turned into a wolf and bit another son Narvar to death. Then he tied up Loki with Narvar's intestines, and then dripped the venom of a big snake on Loki. Ki's face didn't stop for a second. Fortunately, Loki's wife Seijen sympathized with him. She sat next to the bound Loki, and used a cup to absorb the poison to prevent it from falling on her husband's face. But whenever the cup overflowed with venom, she had to stand up to pour it out, and the skin on Loki's face would be burned by the venom. To be honest, Loki still had the nerve to seek revenge on Odin after breaking free from his bonds at Ragnarok, which is indeed a standard villain style. It was obvious that he was the one who planned to kill other brothers. And in the end, he labeled himself as the victim. And the winter of Fimbul also comes from this. So in theory, this thing is also part of the Doomsday Battle of Ragnarok. A prelude. It's incredible that Odin would collect Fenrir winter. Mimir sighed with emotion. Gu Shenhai didn't express too much. As a group of gods from a mythical world, it was strange to collect winter. Can this thing really be effective? After all, it is said to be winter, but in fact it should be more like moral corruption. Gu Shenhai knew that the real effects of Fimbul winter were wars, killings between fathers, sons and brothers, and moral decay in the world. The cold winter, with ice and snow blowing in from all directions, is only the most insignificant part. He is stored in an ice coffin in Jotunheim. If we are lucky, we can find it. I'm not sure whether this ice coffin can withstand the burning of this flame. Vidal hesitated before saying. Gu Shenhai glanced at Mimir, and then asked, How come you can't get a share of everything in Jotunheim? Isn't it normal to stay in Jotunheim in the winter? Mimir said. After all, it is the country of frost giants and mountain giants, and the environment itself is very harsh. Huh? It seems quite reasonable. If it wasn't a fire, Gu Shenhai complained. Before going to Jotunheim to get Fimbul winter, I must first find Vala, Mandy, and Modi. I saw their surviving figures from the Supreme Throne, Vidal said. This Vala is not the son of Loki, but the son of Odin, Vidal's brother, the god of gardening and revenge. And they have the same name. This is Revenge, which may be a bit strange, because he grew up on the first day he was born, and used a bow and arrow to kill the god of darkness, Hodr, to avenge the god of light, Baldur. Nordic people taboo against cannibalism. The one-day-old Vala has not yet been groomed. At this time, Vala can be considered a member of Odin's family. So he can kill Hodel, who is also the son of Odin. Even if there is Loki's plan in this, it is still the god of darkness. Hodel. Who does it? They are still alive. Mimir thought he had died long ago. Yes. So The doll cared more about his brother and nephew than the winter of Finnboul sealed in an ice coffin in Jotunheim. We will split up. Gu and I will go to Jotunheim to get Fimbulwinter, while you will go look for the two brothers Vala and Mandy Moody. After finding the person, we headed all the way to the extreme south. A small new world appeared there, and we met there. Mimir interrupted the doll directly. He doesn't care about the life or death of Vala and others. Saving the world is the most critical time now. Even if Vidal died while going to find these four people, Mimir would not care. At this moment, Vidal also understood what Mimir meant. After a long silence, he nodded. Okay, let's meet at the extreme south of the world. His original intention was to use the poisonous dragon Hodenig to go there. In this way, the speed would be faster, and the survival rate of the three Asa Protoss would be higher. But Mimir had a different opinion. So the two of them were not talking about where to go first, but they were arguing about who should own the poisonous dragon Hodenig. Vital's concession was not because he lost, but because he understood one thing. That is, the poisonous dragon Hodenig was controlled by Gu Shanhai. And Gu Shanhai did not speak, which meant that the other party was more biased towards Mimir. This is indeed the case. Compared to the three Asa Protoss, Gu Shanhai would definitely choose Fimbulwinter. I hope you can arrive safely. Mimir looked at Vidal, who was walking away, and finally said, but Vidal returned to his usual silence, without answering, and walked further and further into the flames. You seem to have offended him. Gu Shanhai said this. No. Vidal understood us. Otherwise, he would not have been silent in response. Mimir said. Okay. You can understand if you say you understand. Then let's set off. Gu Shanhai didn't care. He also knew the location of the ice coffin that carried Finnboul's winter. Vidal said before leaving. Let's go. Hurry up. Otherwise the winter of Finnboul will be melted by the flames, and we may no longer be able to find such a suitable treasure to extinguish the fire. Mimir was much more eager than Gu Shanhai. Gu Shanhai summoned the nine-headed poisonous dragon Hodenig, and then the two left Asgard and headed for Jotunheim. The journey went smoothly, and there were no problems. Gu Shanhai happened to be collecting various corpses along the way. Speaking of which, are the bodies of all races in the Nine Realms so tough? The flames that can burn down the world tree can't even burn corpses. Gu Shanhai complained. Hodenig's eyes almost turned red as he watched Gu Shanhai keep stuffing corpses into his arms. These were supposed to be his. I don't know these things. The branch of destruction is Suturt's treasure. Why does it have such a magical effect? You should ask the fire giant king. Mimir replied. I would like to, but he is dead a long time ago. Where can I ask? If you are not a giant of wisdom, why don't you even know this? Gu Shanhai also joked. The one who knows these things is the wise giant Mimir, not a skull like me. Mimir joked in reverse. In the process of chatting with Gu Shanhai, he gradually figured out the logic and patterns of Gu Shanhai's words, and after testing them, he finally adapted a set of corresponding speaking techniques. Even if Gu Shanhai doesn't understand what he means, he can still pick up the joke. When you are teased, know how to laugh back or laugh at yourself as a way to build closer relationships. From their previous interactions, he also knew that Gu Shanhai didn't care about these things. Ah, so the logic that Lu Xun and Zhou Shuren have nothing to do with each other is established. Gu Shanhai did not expect that Mimir could recreate the famous scene of arresting Lu Xun. Although I don't know who Lu Xun and Zhou Shuren are, I guess this is definitely an interesting story. Mimir watched the distance gradually reach Jotunheim, and his mood became more and more nervous. But he didn't show it. Gu Shanhai noticed it, so he quickly changed the topic. As the poisonous dragon Hodenig advanced, he quickly arrived at the location. It should be here. Let's dig. Gu Shanhai looked at the poisonous dragon Hodenig. This means it digs. Then we can't let Mimir dig it. He only has one head left, so it's not appropriate to do this. As for Gu Shanhai, how lazy he is to not take action. Fortunately, the ice coffin and Fimbulwinter were stored in a cellar, and the burial was not shallow. Otherwise, it might really melt away. Gu Shanhai also noticed through perception that there is a temperature difference between the underground temperature here and the underground temperature in other areas. This shows that the Fimbulwinter is still there. If it really disappears, it is unlikely that there will be such a big temperature difference. Under the command of Gu Shanhai, Poison Dragon Hodenig reluctantly began to dig. Be efficient, or you'll get whipped. With your complexion, you are definitely a good hand at picking cotton in the cotton garden. Gu Shanhai couldn't help but sigh. Mimir did not answer the question, but watched the actions of the poisonous dragon Hodenig, wanting to see the integrity of Finnbull Winter at the first time. Hodenig is very big, so he can dig very quickly. He can dig out a lot of soil at one time, which is easier to use than an excavator. Time passed by minute, and soon, the results came out. Found it, Mimir said immediately, feeling relieved at the same time. Immediately, a burst of cold air surged out, dispelling the surrounding flames and heat. Chapter 608 Arrival. The new world is full of vitality. After obtaining the Finnbull Winter, Gu Shanhai took Mimir to the extreme south, where Hela and her ship Najerfa crashed. This place is now full of life, and the flames that burn the world have not spread yet. This piece of land purified by seawater gradually grows greener and more lush plants than before, and the earth regains its vitality. It possesses the last remaining power of destiny to protect this new world. However, this was already the last gift of fate. When Gu Shanhai set foot on this land, he had already noticed that fate had long since dissipated. This place can't last long. It can only last 10 years at most. Mimir looked worried. 10 years was really too short. So short that he didn't even know how to let Gu Shanhai calm down the heat and burning of the entire world through the Finnbull Winter within 10 years. Finnbull Winter is no match for the flames. It is too small. If it were not buried deep underground and preserved in an ice coffin, it would have been evaporated by the flames long ago. In fact, Mimir's feelings about Finnbull Winter are also very complicated. It was supposed to be a disaster, but in the end it brought them life. However, in future generations, this thing will still be a disaster. 10 years is enough. As long as we extinguish the flames, we can last longer. Gu Shanhai looked at this vibrant land, which was probably the birthplace of the King of Hunters. As for the wizarding world, you are simply not qualified. You just belong to a world of good luck. It is born last, not first. Are you sure? Mimir was a little surprised. He didn't expect Gu Shanhai to be so sure. In his opinion, the possibility of success in creating a treasure that can extinguish the flames of the burning world within 10 years, or even less, is too small. Why aren't you sure? I never do anything I'm not sure about. Gu Shanhai could tell at a glance that Finnbull's Winter was indeed the prototype of the world-destroying frost. The power of Finnbull Winter at this stage is more inclined to the 5-turbid evil world type. Coldness is not its main feature. It is a real collapse of human heart and morality. The main function of the world-destroying frost has been degraded, leaving only coldness. After all, it is used to extinguish fires, so it must be cold enough. Otherwise, if the fire turns into a vicious fire, wouldn't it be a backhand to yourself? How can I help you? Mimir asked. This is not to say that Mimir can help with the work, but to ask what materials are needed. And if it is convenient, he can help provide the location. I need a winter, and I don't think you can help. Gu Shanhai understood that the current Finnbull Winter was simply useless, so he needed a winter to provide sufficient growth for Finnbull Winter. Space to allow Gu Shanhai to improve Finnbull Winter. The first thing to do is to eliminate its function of causing moral collapse, and the second is to increase the power of coldness. Then I'm afraid you can only travel in this new world. Once you leave here, the Finnbull Winter will be melted by the high temperature. Mimir also hesitated. This cold winter will inevitably last for a long time in this new world. It may be inconvenient if Vidal and the others arrive. Mimir has normal feelings. Now that Finnbull Winter has been obtained, there is no longer any urgency, so it is natural to prefer Vidal. Although his previous behavior was a bit cruel, deep down in his heart, he very much hoped that Vidal could bring his brother and nephew to this new world to live together. Nonsense! I'm not stupid. This thing is just like an ice cube. It will melt if you are not careful. Gu Shanhai looked at the Finnbull Winter in his hand, which had now begun to spread. The environment is still very suitable. Even if the spread is very slow, winter will always come. His behavior is not much different from violating the seasons. It should be spring at this stage. As a result, due to the winter of Finnbull, the 3 seasons of spring, summer and autumn are being replaced little by little, allowing winter to appear directly. This thing is definitely an incredible treasure. Gu Shanhai felt that in the world of science and technology, it was a supergiant weather controller, the kind that covered the entire world, and was a strategic weapon. The only drawback is that it is uncontrollable and has a single climate. You can only choose winter. And it's not up to you to decide how to play it. This is not a treasure. It is a disaster. My friend. Mimir corrected Gu Shenhai's statement. What can be controlled by humans is a treasure. Disaster is the name of this kind of uncontrollable thing. It makes sense. Gu Shenhai agreed with Mimir's statement. Then Gu Shenhai realized that most of the things he created were caused by disasters. In this way, it seems very reasonable that Fimbul Winter turns into a world-destroying thrust. In fact, Gu Shenhai also knew that this was indeed a disaster. If Sudard hadn't used the flames of the branch of destruction to burn down the world tree and the 9 realms. Otherwise, this Fimbul Winter was said to be collected by Odin. But in fact it is possible that it was sealed and suppressed. And once it is released, it will inevitably come back. That is to say, the Frost Giant did not find it. Otherwise it might not have been released immediately, allowing the Fimbul Winter to sweep through the 9 realms again. Most of the time, Frost Giants are representatives of villains, not positive characters. It would be nice if there was a Frost Giant. Maybe I could ask him to help me herd winter. Gu Shenhai looked at the growth progress of Fimbul Winter, which was somewhat unsatisfactory. It will take at least half a year to cover the entire new world. After all, it has been ruined, and only a little bit of scum is left. What's more, the flames that burn the world are watching eagerly outside, and the high temperature they bring makes it impossible for Fimbul Winter to grow effectively. How did you know that Frost Giants can graze in winter? They just live in the cold, Mimir said helplessly. He always felt that Gu Shenhai's brain circuit was strange. Can't? Gu Shenhai felt a little pity. Maybe Begilmer can do it, Mimir said. Bermir is the ancestor of the Frost Giants, the grandson of Ymir, the ancestor of the Giants. Based on the current situation, the Frost Giants are probably the worst offenders. They are thinking of changing to a better living environment, such as a warmer environment. It was indeed warm enough now. But it was so warm that the Frost Giants couldn't bear it. They want to be warm, not burned. Perhaps the Yeti civilization is the legacy of these Frost Giants? Death means all death. But Hela's big ship Najerfa is made of nails and carries the souls of the kingdom of death. After death, they will transform into a new world together. As long as they wait for recovery, they will be able to be born again. Therefore, it is not actually dead. It only takes a suitable opportunity to revive again. It is also true that all races in later generations have inherited Najerfa's ability to travel through the world. But because this ability cannot be activated, except for the elves who are helped by the leaves of the world tree, which can evolve and improve, only a few people will have it. Begilmer doesn't even know where he died. So where can I go to find him? Gu Shenhai complained. He must be looking for it. But not now. After he puts out the fire, he will be able to know everything with just a click of his spiritual consciousness. Otherwise, this thing will burn his spiritual consciousness and perception. And it will burn after using it for a long time. Who can bear this? You may not find the living ones, but you might find corpses if you look for them. Mimir said this. What? Are you planning to use Begilmer as a material? This shouldn't be part of the plan. Right. Gu Shenhai asked. We need to find a way to suppress the Fimbul Winter, which has become a world-destroying thrust. Mimir directly acquiesced that Gu Shenhai could not solve this matter. Wait a minute. You are planning to use Bermer's body as fuel. Gu Shenhai also realized. Mimir plans to recreate the binary celestial body. The situation in Hunting Star is actually very similar to Valhalla. The only difference is that it also incorporates related settings such as Wild Hunt, fire, and the undead. Not just Begilmer. All the gods and giants want it, Mimir said. It's a good idea. But the problem is that you don't have the firepower. Gu Shenhai originally wanted to spread his hands, but Mimir held it in his hands, which was a bit impolite. Yes, I may know what this fire is, Mimir said. Gu Shenhai's mind suddenly turned around, and he soon thought of another story related to fire. And it also belongs to the prelude to Ragnarok, and is closely related to him. Yes, it was the original gold ring. The Nibelung ring made of magic gold from the bottom of the Rhine River. In the final act of the Ring of the Nibelungs, the Valkyrie Brunhilde set Siegfried on fire because of a conspiracy and broke her oath. And they both died in the flames together. Siegfried? Gu Shenhai asked immediately. Yes. His and Brunhilde's bodies rose from the sky in the light of fire, which may not be extinguished yet, Mimir said. I have sat on the high throne before, but I have not seen it in Midgard. Gu Shenhai knew that it was not only Siegfried and the Valkyrie Brynhildr who were burning together, but also the origin of all evil. That ring made of Rhenish magic gold and became the Golden Ring Nibelungen. Midgard is a country where humans live. The reason why it is there is because the story takes place in the human world. This ring was worn on the hand of the Hunter King. From this, it can be determined that perhaps Siegfried, the Valkyrie Brunhilde, and the Nibelungen rings may have helped when the hunting star was created. No small favor. Therefore it is possible. They are all flames. Maybe you saw them wrong, Mimir said. These are all fires. It is normal that you saw them wrong. That makes sense. The problem is hard to find. Gu Shenhai felt that this guy was good at summoning people. He has to come to do the work. This first step requires extinguishing the flames. And in the process, it is also necessary to ensure that the winter of Fimbul cannot affect the burning flames of Siegfried and Brunhilde. This is probably too difficult. It's completely beyond human capabilities. One more thing. Even I don't know if this thing burned to death. If you want fire, you might as well just use the branch of destruction or go directly to break a piece of fire from the body of the world tree and plant it. Gu Shenhai continued, saying that compared to the flame used to burn the ring of the Nibelungs, he was naturally more optimistic about the flame that could burn the world. It's too dangerous. And if we really want to use this flame that can destroy the world, the fuel will probably have to be transformed from the strong man's soul into the world. The cost is too high. Mimir is not stupid. There is still a difference between the two. Although the world-destroying thrust is powerful, the world is just frozen to death. Over time, a new world will be born to complete a new cycle. But if you want to use the flames that burn the world as firewood, you need to cut off the roots directly. When the fragmented world is finished burning, everything will return to peace. At this time, Gu Shenhai finally understood why the hunting star's fire could not completely suppress the world-destroying thrust, and could only rely on the Hunter King's combination, which was still a limited suppression, because they are not equal in themselves. Of course, if it were to be replaced by an equivalent flame, the Hunter King would not be able to withstand it. One is a strong hunter who can form a snowballing pattern through the ability of wild hunting. The other is to attack the world. Whether it is the King of Hunters or the Ghost Hunters, they do not have the ability to drag a world into the flames and burn it. The two cannot be compared at all. The cost is indeed high, so I can only do my best. Gu Shenhai was actually thinking. If he hadn't come in arbitrarily, who would have done it? Mimir didn't survive. So even if a protagonist emerges later, he won't be able to save the world. The timeline is not messed up. Right. Gu Shenhai's mind twitched as he thought of this matter. Based on the situation you described, if the binary celestial body orbits in the community formed by the fragmented world, then every time it orbits and suppresses the world-destroying thrust, it requires the heat of fire. Then every time a world is needed, after one revolution, there will inevitably be a large number of fragmented worlds as fuel. After dozens of revolutions, how many fragmented worlds will be left? Mimir was worried that he would not be able to convince Gu Shenhai, so he explained his interests clearly. What this means is that you still have to live in these fragmented worlds. If there really is no world left after going around a few times, you can't just float by yourself wherever you go. He would not let Gu Shenhai do it out of righteousness or justice, but out of interests. Even though Gu Shenhai usually seemed very generous, Mimir could also see that he was a person who didn't get up early without any benefit. Otherwise, he could stuff the corpse into his arms. Well, I understand. Gu Shenhai lowered his eyelids. He thought about Mimir's words and felt that what he said made sense. After losing his backstage, Gu Shenhai did not dare to act casually, so he naturally planned to make himself more stable. It's 1 o'clock. He doesn't plan to bring harm to the world, nor does he plan to make any big moves. Instead, he plans to follow the trend of history and make himself less conspicuous. Chapter 609, Cold Winter. Isolating the flames that burn the world. Vidal brought Vala and Mandy Moody to the new world, and was shocked when he saw the swaying wind and snow. After all, they had heard about the scorching flames and the high temperature, let alone wind and snow. There was no water at all. Everything is burned to ashes. And except for the corpses of powerful beings such as gods and giants, there is no life left. Otherwise, how could this Ragnarok be called the Doomsday War? It's cool. I never thought that one day I would feel comfortable because of the winter of Fimbul. Vala, the god of vengeance, said this in a complicated tone. Let's go. Mimir and Gu should be waiting for us inside. Vidal didn't know what this new world originally looked like. He only thought that Mimir and Gu Shenhai had already begun research on the flames that burn the world. Once successful, the world can return to its original state. It is impossible to restore the original state. At most, it will slow down the speed of the world's collapse into world communities. The moment they stepped into the wind and snow, the temperature immediately dropped, making them shiver from the cold. I didn't expect that you would actually be able to reach the new world alive. It's incredible. Gu Shenhai's voice came. In the wind and snow, Gu Shenhai's figure gradually emerged. In addition, he also saw Mimir, who was about to become a decoration on Gu Shenhai's hand. He wrapped himself tightly in a sheep towel, exposing his 2 eyes. It's really incredible. When I found them, I was actually prepared to see corpses, Vidal said. He doesn't resent Mimir's choice. If he were in Mimir's shoes, he would make the same choice. But after Mimir chose for him, he didn't have to be in a dilemma. Come with me. I've already built a shelter. After Gu Shenhai finished speaking, he turned around and left, leading the way. The shelter is the underground base, dug by Gu Shenhai. It's really warm. Is a house made of steel so warm? Vala asked curiously. No. It's because I have special skills in heat preservation and insulation. If you want to learn, you can go to the bookshelf and find a book for yourself. I can't guarantee whether I can learn it or not. Gu Shenhai is not stingy with the knowledge related to smelting, materials, construction, etc. In his eyes, knowledge is precious only before he masters it and turns it into strength. After mastering and turning it into strength, the value is greatly reduced. Another thing is that Gu Shenhai has no intention of monopolizing these low-level knowledge or deliberately making things difficult for them. Why does the winter of Finnbull become so terrifying? The last time I experienced it, it was not so cold. Vidal asked doubtfully. He has also experienced that the winter of Finnbull after the death of Baldur, the god of light, was actually not that cold. If you want to put out the fire, the original version won't work. So I modified it a little bit. Gu Shenhai is also very good at modifying Finnbull winter. Changing things like winter is very handy for Gu Shenhai. He is still a world after all. And his body also has the normal rotation of the seasons. No matter how magical the winter in Finnbull is, it is still winter in nature. Would this cause an eternal winter? Vidal didn't want to get out of the heat and go into the water again. No. I do things in a measured way. What Gu Shenhai said was pure nonsense. He is cultivating Finnbull winter to death, and he must make it a real world-destroying frost. But it was not the world-destroying frost he had seen before, but the time anchor he needed. As soon as he continues to try the project of memory projection into the past, he will naturally not give up on this project. The second is to find a way to return to the future. He didn't want to stay in this era anymore. At least he had to go back to the future where the first era had been born, and quickly leave this world with deep water. He was afraid that one of his big moves would put him in danger. During this time, his traces were limited, and his resurrection technology was so low that there were only billions left, which left him with little sense of security. Without a backing and no strength, how could he feel at ease? Therefore, binary celestial bodies are very important to him. The stronger they are, the better, and the longer they last, the better. If the project of memory projection into the past works successfully, Gu Shenhai may not want to go back to the future, but plans to directly break through the bottleneck and reach a higher level. In this way, he can guarantee himself, to a certain extent, safety, and then survive the time to survive. Traveling through time is risky, and Gu Shenhai doesn't know if he will be able to play with time after his transformation. There will be no problem in Finnbull winter. It's not that easy to extinguish the flame, Mimir said to smooth things over for Gu Shenhai. In his opinion, this is the best result now. The plan to save the world went very smoothly, and Vidal returned safely with his people. Everything was moving in a good direction, which made him very happy. Gu Shenhai was not surprised that Mimir would smooth things over for him. There were many things that Gu Shenhai was not suitable to say, and could only be said by Mimir. During this period of time, Gu Shenhai has been observing Mimir's condition. After all, he was contaminated by something outside the world. Unfortunately, Gu Shenhai didn't notice any strange behavior from Mimir at all, whether it was gibbering or developing a new personality. He can eat, sleep, and chat, and at first glance, he looks healthier than Gu Shenhai. If he continues to suffer like this, Gu Shenhai doubts that he will be killed by Mimir, who only has his head left. He is not a good person. Then what do we need to do? Vidal knew that he and others could not just stay in this shelter and eat and drink with peace of mind. This is intolerable to them. Yes, I am short of 2 gatekeepers at my door. You arrange 2 to ensure my safety. If there are 2 left, you can take turns and stand alone for half a day. This mission is very important. If the treasures inside are damaged or stolen, it will cause great damage to our plan or even directly fail, Gu Shenhai said with a solemn expression. Of course, these words were meant to deceive them. With the personalities of these 4 people, it was unrealistic for them to stay wherever they felt cool. Pressure can lead to bad things, so it's appropriate to arrange for them to visit the gate. Hearing this, the doll also heard what Gu Shenhai meant, and instinctively wanted to refute, but was stopped by Mimer's eyes, which meant obeying the arrangement. Most of these Asa Protoss are extremely brave. In other words, I can fight, but my brain is not very bright. By the way, I heard that you raised the poisonous dragon Hodenig. Can I see it? Vala, the god of vengeance, didn't care about this. He wanted to see the poisonous dragon Hodenig even more. False. I don't have the poisonous dragon Hodenig here. Only the Hydra. You can't see it even now. I sent it to the Marvel world a few days ago to be a mascot. And now it has developed a Hydra army. Recently, there was a slogan, cut off 1 head and grow 2 heads to replace it. Not to mention, it is quite impressive. I even want to sponsor some Yellow Turban warriors. Let Hydra start the great cause of rebellion. Let it shout that the sky is dead and Huang Tian will stand up. And then turn Yingjiang into a Taoist kingdom on Earth. Vala was a little surprised when he heard Gu Shenhai's words. He couldn't understand anything about Hydra or the Yellow Turban warriors, but he understood the general meaning. The poisonous dragon Hodenig is gone. He may have sent it away to be used as a mascot. That's such a pity. Vala didn't force it. Although he hated Hodenig, he would not make trouble unreasonably. That was Gu Shenhai's prey, and he would not interfere with it no matter what Gu Shenhai did. He still knew this. Okay, let's go see the door. If you don't have anything to do, just wait and see. Gu Shenhai waved his hand, indicating that it was time for you to get lost. The 4 of them had no objections, and were naturally ready to leave. By the way, you can just find a room for accommodation, clothing, etc. It's all fully equipped. You have to cook your own meals. Various supplies are placed in various warehouses. You can take a look around when you have time. Gu Shenhai added he gave an instruction. Don't make yourself stupid when the time comes. Just thinking about it again. It seems that their life is boring to begin with. Just hunting, fighting, drinking, and then doing other things they love to do. And there are not many other activities left. I guess it means that the gods in Greece can play a little more expensively than the gods in Northern Europe. The gods of Northern Europe and Greece seem to be closer to humans. And they are still the kind of gods with very abundant desires. So they will do some ridiculous or extremely perverted things from time to time. The doll and the others did not refute. And after nodding in response, they assigned 2 people to guard the door, while the remaining 2 people began to familiarize themselves with the entire underground base. How are you going to place them? Mimir asked. At first glance, it seemed that Gu Shenhai had been resettled. But in fact this was just a temporary resettlement, because Gu Shenhai wanted to discover the value of these 4 Asa survivors. If the value is high enough, then there is no need to worry. Gu Shenhai can provide for them in their old age. However, if it was of no value, then Gu Shenhai would have to seriously consider what would happen. He doesn't raise idlers. Xiao Bai is not a human. He is a deer. Well, Xiao Bai is actually not that useless. At least, he can provide some emotional value. For example, when tormenting Xiao Bai, it can bring some pleasure to Gu Shenhai and make his negative emotions disappear. Although doing so will cause negative emotions to appear on Xiao Bai. But the smile would not disappear. It just moved from Xiao Bai's face to Gu Shenhai's face. It takes a while to investigate. They are the gods of the New World. They will be of sufficient help to our plan. Gu Shenhai actually realized that after the arrival of the doll, Vala, Mandy, and Modi, the entire world's recovery is getting faster and faster. How to detect it is also very simple. Naturally it is data monitoring. The data of Finbull Winter has continued to decline. This is not due to him, but to the arrival of the gods of the New World. And the world has begun to develop further. At the same time, fate has completely dissipated. After letting the doll wait for the Asa Protoss to successfully arrive in the New World, he could no longer hold on. This is also a good thing. At least you don't have to worry about being plotted against. As for how the New World will develop in the future, Gu Shenhai is not sure. But one thing is certain. That is, when Vidal came back, he actually brought 2 less people with him. That's right. 2 people. These two people are Lib and Libtrasil, the ancestors of mankind in the New World. If he hasn't been brought back now, it probably won't be possible in the future. But he shouldn't be dead yet. The reason is also very simple. That is, because of the butterfly effect. If Vidal had not met Gu Shenhai, he would not have quickly traveled to Asgard and arrived at the Silver Hall by taking the poisonous dragon Nidhogg. Therefore, it is likely that the time was wrong. When looking at the 9 realms through the Supreme Throne, I could not see these two people. Fate will guide them. But at this time, fate itself cannot protect itself. The new gods who can protect these new worlds are already very good. And there is not much left to protect these two humans. What's more important is that it's not impossible to be born again. As long as he waits for Vidal and others to grow further, he can also create humans himself. Now, they do not have this ability, because they still have the original priesthood. It also takes time to bind this new world. Not to mention that Gu Shenhai fought back and dragged the new world into the Finnbull Winter, which made the efficiency even lower. This new world was not a good place to begin with. Thanks to the sponsorship of the goddess of death Hela and the underworld ship Najerfa, it could barely appear. How could it withstand Gu Shenhai's random tossing? It's good if you're not dead, but it's not good if you ask for too much. The god of the new world? This is not a good thing. Mimir sighed, and then said, this is the result of fate. It's not a good thing. But Mimir won't stop it. This must be a way for World Tree to save itself. But now it seems that World Tree has no way to save itself. There's no other way. Someone has to step forward. I don't have any spare time to spare a hand to help. Gu Shenhai said that this was their fate. Mimir thought about asking Gu Shenhai to help. But he only thought about it and did not speak. Just as Gu Shenhai said, this is their duty. Otherwise, would they really be watching the door for them? I will speed up the improvement and optimization of Finnbull Winter. It will be even colder next time. You have to find a way to keep it warm. After all, you only have one head left. Don't worry. By the time I finish the experiment and come out, all you'll be left with is your skull. And I'll have to thaw it for you. Whether it is Mimir or Vidal, given their situation, they will not be frozen to death by the Finnbull Winter, but they will be frozen into large ice blocks. And then Gu Shenhai will have to defrost them. I will wrap it in 2 more layers and notify Vidal. Mimir also understood in his heart that Gu Shenhai was ready to officially enter the experimental stage. Otherwise, he would not have said this. Chapter 610, I actually have a plan to save the world. The cold wind blew by, and ice and snow drifted across the entire 9 realms along with a low temperature. The world-destroying thrust reappeared in Gu Shenhai's hands. It still doesn't work. The current world-destroying thrust still relies on the season of Finnbull Winter, and it is a type of rootless duckweed. Gu Shenhai looked at the data fed back. The flame and thrust hedged. The data was successful. But the cost was too high, and Gu Shenhai simply couldn't accept it. No matter how long winter is, one day will always pass. And this flame cannot be extinguished because the world-destroying thrust is not strong enough. At this stage, a contradictory scene is created. Flames and ice and snow exist together. And then, there is water vapor everywhere. The harm is much greater than before. The water vapor is very hot. It seems that the plan can only move towards the binary celestial body. Gu Shenhai's original plan was naturally to create his own world-destroying thrust, so he could do without the gravitational structure of the binary celestial body. But now it seems that it is not possible. At least in this regard, there must be corresponding stability. The superposition of the double-star celestial body and the magic tidal radiation zone can ensure the stability of the entire community to the greatest extent. I didn't expect that one day I would personally stand up and save the world. Gu Shenhai couldn't help but laugh at himself, and then said, sure enough, you don't know the pain until you hit yourself. In the past, when there was a way out, Gu Shenhai would not care whether the world lived or died. Now that there is no way out, he can only bite the bullet. Fortunately, he knew the answer. Otherwise, he would really be in trouble. As Gu Shenhai withdrew Finnbull Winter's supply of world-destroying thrust, the entire damaged 9 realms once again fell into high temperatures. Now that the data test came out, Gu Shenhai naturally had to recycle it. Otherwise his resources would be burned. I really thought Mimir and Vidal would have any resources. There would be nothing left in the whole world after this fire. There are resources in the new world. But the problem is that even those few resources cannot support Gu Shenhai to complete a few experiments, let alone a complete experiment. With the data in hand, we quickly return to the shelter. The temperature in the shelter is okay. The temperature in the new world is not high. It is already minus 50 degrees. In addition to wind and snow, there are also hail and other hazards. So the new world has also fallen into silence. You're back? How was the experiment? Mimir hurriedly asked when he saw Gu Shenhai return to the laboratory. The world-destroying thrust is successful. The only problem is the lack of strength caused by instability. At this stage, it can only be suppressed but cannot be completely extinguished. Gu Shenhai did not hide anything, and then showed the experimental data to Mimir. Mimir quickly read through the entire experimental data. Especially after seeing the results, he was very excited. This is good news for him. As for why he can understand the experimental data, it is also very simple. Because Mimir is Gu Shenhai's experimental assistant. Gu Shenhai built an intelligent body for him, and then connected it to the nerves, giving Mimir a different kind of body. It's just that the material strength of this body is limited, and can only be used in the base. Once he leaves the base, and comes to the low temperature of the new world, nothing will happen to Mimir's head. He is a giant, but his body is not. Problems will occur due to the low temperature. The construction of Frost Star is urgent. We need to complete it as soon as possible, Mimir said decisively. If there will be problems in the future, it will not mean that it will die. If it cannot be solved now, it will directly perish. Yes, I will use Fimbul Winter as the raw material to create it. But once this starts, there will be no room for regret. Even I can't solve the binary celestial structure, Gu Shenhai said in a deep voice. This is true, because he plans to use the binary celestial body as an anchor prop for memory projection. So it is naturally impossible to solve it by himself. I understand. I have already prepared for this matter. Mimir did not think about stopping, but planned to get history back on track. The entire world community is bound by the gravity of the binary celestial body. Otherwise, there would be so many fragmented worlds. In his eyes, the future generations where Gu Shenhai lives are already very good, and there is no need to make changes. Otherwise, if they really need to be changed, they will only be in a good direction. What if it fails? Therefore, he wanted to be on the safe side rather than take risks. Well, I will start taking action in the next 2 days. I just hope you don't regret it. Gu Shenhai did not expect that Mimir was more decisive than him. He also wanted to follow the inertia of history. But he also had many small ideas, such as geo-occupy the magpie's nest and so on. It's normal to be selfish. After all, this is where he will live in the future. It is impossible to be led by others, even if he gains a little initiative. It is better than doing nothing. Okay. Mimir can only count on Gu Shenhai now. If the dwarves and the like are still alive, he won't be able to use Gu Shenhai. Unfortunately, the situation is like this. Then he changed his tone. Vidal went out to explore a new world today, but he didn't gain much. His bond with the new world is getting deeper and deeper. Will something happen? Mimir was a little worried. He had seen Gu Shenhai's research data on the entire world, and he could confirm that the entire world would inevitably be broken into countless fragmented worlds. So the new world they were in would also be a part of it. At this time, the 4 Asa clan became the gods of the new world, and were basically bound to the new world. The last people bound to the world were God King Odin and Queen Frigga. And the result is self-evident. If the new world is really broken, then they will definitely die. Yes, there will be both prosperity and loss. But I can't stop this process. How could Gu Shenhai have the energy to stop these things? For him, he not only has to research and develop his own binary celestial body every day, but also studies the 5 books he obtained in the previous copy. Of course, his energy is limited. Basically, these 4 Asa Protoss have entered the countdown of their lives. The new world is just a slim hope. Gu Shenhai is not completely sure that they will die. But the possibility of survival is so low that it can be completely ignored. Of course, before Gu Shenhai used Fimbul Winter to conduct the world-killing frost experiment to torment the new world, the survival rate was naturally higher. Now after being tortured, it has naturally dropped. Because even if it collapses at that time, this entire new world can inherit everything from the 9 realms and become an independent world. And it can also become the central world of the world community. Restoration is not impossible. But this kind of thing is only possible, at least in later generations. Gu Shenhai did not see an obvious world center in the celestial world community. Obviously it didn't succeed. Or it succeeded, but eventually died out for unknown reasons. Being a central world is not invincible. Perhaps there is a solution, such as depriving them of their status as gods? Mimir is also very concerned about Vidal. This thing can be taken away as long as I say. So the four of them must be willing to do it, Gu Shanhai complained, and Mimir took it for granted. Besides, even if they are deprived, what should be done next? You can't help them forever. In my opinion, it's better to let them fend for themselves. Gu Shanhai said that children and grandchildren will have their own blessings, and it is okay to help them occasionally. But it is outrageous for you to say that you have helped them so much. When it comes to his grandson's generation, Gu Shanhai is only responsible for education and doesn't worry about whether he is successful in his studies or anything like that. I will consider your opinion. Mimir did not agree immediately, but he did not object either. Instead, he felt that what Gu Shanhai said made sense, but could not make up his mind. Then let it be like this. I don't care. Gu Shanhai didn't care about these things, unless Vidal and others suddenly become valuable. The life and death of these four Asa Protoss has little to do with him. He helped before because there was no conflict, and Gu Shanhai was relatively indifferent. Now that he was busy, he definitely didn't have time to help. In this case, it is a matter of affection to help, and it is a duty not to help. The two of them stopped talking about the four Asa Protoss, and soon fell into intensive research. Vidal, this place is really too desolate. Everything is covered by ice and snow. It is far more terrifying than the previous Fimbul winter. Vala, the god of gardening and revenge, looked at the vast white area and wiped away the cover. Snow on the face. At least it's much better than a world burned by flames. Life is hidden under the ice and snow. As long as you wait for the ice and snow to melt, everything will be restored. Vidal looked at this scene, which was actually quite worrying. After all, he was the man of the forest. God. You said? Can Fimbul Winter really save the 9 realms? Vala was a little confused. When he, Vidal, and the two brothers Mandy and Modi were on duty, they would go out and explore this new world. Through their exploration, they learned that before it was shrouded in the Fimbul Winter, it was actually a vibrant new world. But after the winter of Fimbul arrived, everything fell into the cold. The withering of life appeared before their eyes. This result was a bit difficult for them to accept, as if they and others were no different than executioners. Of course, they are not young people, but the 9 worlds are shrouded in flames, and the new world is covered in ice and snow, giving them a feeling of sadness, like a rabbit dying and a fox dying. Yes, Mimir is a giant of wisdom. He must have a solution. In fact, Vidal was not confident when he said this. If Mimir really had such vast wisdom, then he would have discussed with his father Odin a way to solve Ragnarok. Not only has it not been solved now, but it has already happened. It can be seen that the wisdom of the wise giant also has limits, rather than being unlimited. The conversation between them seemed more like cheering each other up than really asking questions. The purpose is to strengthen your determination. Soon they were back in the shelter, the warmth driving away the cold from their bodies as soon as they stepped inside. Then they picked up a bottle of spirits and poured it into their stomachs. Then a heat wave rose from their stomachs, making them energetic instantly. What do you want to eat tonight? Vala asked the two brothers Mandy and Modi who were guarding the door. In the shelter, there is no shortage of supplies at all, whether it is spirits or meat. There is a large warehouse piled up. Gu Shanhai and Mimir usually don't need to eat. Of course, they can survive without eating. They are still gods after all. However, their past habits still keep them in the habit of drinking heavily and eating large amounts of meat. Let's do the meat and add some fruits and vegetables, Modi said directly. The remaining 3 Asa Protoss did not object, and they did not care about this. Afterwards, Mandy asked, "How was your harvest today?" This harvest naturally refers to the situation of exploration. The situation is not optimistic. Just like before, no animals or plants have been found that can survive the winter of Fimbul after Gu's improvement. We still need to reshape the entire world after the cold winter, Vidal said. This is really bad. But in order to get rid of the 9 realms from the flames, it is worth the effort. Mandy knew that this was a necessary price. The 4 of them chatted like this, while Vidal and Vala shared their experiences today. In fact, they were the same old ones, mostly about ice and snow. But if you don't talk, it will seem very dull. They don't have to worry that their chatting will affect the work in the laboratory. After all, they are very aware of the sound insulation effect. Even if they are having a banquet, fighting, etc. here, the sound will not be transmitted. However, these are actually just their disguises. They are not heartless. How could they not be worried at all when when encountering such a thing. Under normal circumstances, after they became the new gods, they and the two remaining humans would create a new civilization in the new world. Because they had sustenance, they wouldn't have too many thoughts. After all, when they get busy, they would throw away everything. It's all in the back of my mind. Even if it's worries. It's different now. Firstly, they have nothing to do. And secondly, there are no humans. They don't even have giants. Asa and Vaughn are of the opposite sex. They are all of the same sex. And they can't reproduce even if they want to. This resulted in them not having a firm enough spiritual sustenance. Exploring the new world shrouded in the Fimbul winter is also a spiritual sustenance. But this spiritual sustenance is not so qualified and can easily remind them of the 9 realms. Vidal looked at this scene and secretly sighed. He was the oldest and senior among them, so he could only take the lead in pretending to forget everything in the past. This forces him, known as the God of Silence, to be constantly active. The God of Silence is no longer silent. This is simply H.L. Perhaps I should find Mimir and let us do something in this new world instead of being so decadent, Vidal thought to himself. Chapter 6:11. Can memories projected into the past still be affected by signals? The huge white star slowly rose into the sky, bringing with it the entire wind, snow and low temperature. The data is normal, if nothing unexpected happens. Hans Wang, one of the 2 stars, succeeded. Gu Shanhai compared the data. Of course, the current Frost star is naturally not as powerful as the one in later generations. It is even less than 1/1,000,000th in size. It has just been born and will need some time to grow. Mimir did not come to the scene, but observed through remote monitoring equipment, and communicated with Gu Shanhai through the communicator. According to the current data, how long will it take for it to fully mature? If it's fast, 1 year is enough. But if you want to completely extinguish the flames, with the size of the 9 realms and the movement of the Frost star, it will take at least 3 years. Gu Shanhai added. The Frost star's moving speed is actually quite fast. But compared to the entire 9 realms, no matter how fast it is, it still takes time. What's more, this process cannot be done at the fastest speed. It needs to bring the world-destroying frost through movement, to extinguish the fire that burns the world. Otherwise, if you really just fly over and be done with it, then there is no point in putting out the fire. There is enough time. But after these 4 years, the development of the Frost star will inevitably be unstoppable, and the entire 9 realms will fall into a cold winter. We need to build the hunting star in these 4 years as a counterweight to the cold Frost star's method, Mimir said in a deep voice. As the Frost star takes off, the plan has actually begun. Now either it must be destroyed, or it must be allowed to grow to quench its thirst. For years is not the point. The point is how we find the firepower. Naturally, Gu Shanhai would not say that he deliberately got stuck on this matter. On the contrary, it will be strongly supported. After all, it is his anchor point. At this stage, the anchor point is only half full, and sporadic knowledge has been transferred. Gu Shanhai could notice that some short-term memories had appeared in his mind. This part of the memory is actually not much. Probably only 5 years later. The content is also relatively messy. It seems to be a trial run? Why it is 5 years later is also very simple. Because in the first 5 years, I must be busy working on the double star celestial body. And there is no extra time to do this. It took him 3 years from acquiring Fimbul Winter to successfully researching just one Frost star. Greetings to myself. Why don't you send me the data of the hunting star? Gu Shanhai suspected that the anchor point was not strong enough and could not project enough knowledge back. Perhaps enough knowledge was projected back, but it was lost halfway due to poor signal. This situation is probably equivalent to network instability. So what is passed back are some scraps of knowledge and some words that do not match the preface and the follower. This shows that the technology of memory projection into the past is basically successful. The incomplete knowledge received was not a problem with this technology, but a problem with the signal receiver. In the future, he will not use the binary celestial body as the main anchor, but will coordinate with the time of his birth. In this way, more accurate positioning can be achieved. But why don't I know about the signal problem in the future? Is the last timeline being overwritten for the first time? Gu Shanhai was also puzzled. After 3 minutes, reception stalled, as if the transmission was interrupted. It shouldn't be the first time to cover the timeline, but to tell me now that the technology is successful, and to build the hunting star as soon as possible as a stabilization. If I didn't get corresponding feedback just now, my enthusiasm would inevitably be diminished. Therefore, Gu Shanhai guessed that the memory of his future self projected to this node was not to really let Gu Shanhai gain any knowledge, but to tell Gu Shanhai two things. One was to quickly build a base station if the signal was bad, and the other was to tell Gu Shanhai that's why this project was so successful. What are you thinking about? Mimir also noticed through the video that Gu Shanhai suddenly stopped talking. Oh, I'm thinking about the signal issue. Gu Shanhai couldn't help but said as he looked at the frost star that started to orbit. At this time, the 9 realms required the frost star to complete one revolution in about 3 years. The celestial world community in later generations would need 10,000 years as a unit to allow the frost star to complete one revolution. It has to be said that in these long years, the shattered 9 realms not only did not decline, but grew even larger. This is inseparable from the binary celestial body and the magic tidal radiation zone. Signal? What signal? Mimir was a little confused. Something used to bring the twin stars closer together. Gu Shanhai did not answer in detail, but was thinking about the radiation area of the magic tide. He knew that the magic tide brought powerful enough changes to many worlds in the world community. So how to build this thing? What Gu Shanhai needs is not only the binary celestial body, but also the magic tidal radiation zone derived from it, which must be created accordingly. The binary celestial body is a base station for him, and the magic tide is a signal amplifier. The two are naturally indispensable. I don't know who created the binary celestial body in the timeline before Ragnarok when I traveled to it. Gu Shanhai was also very curious. Are you the guiding force? But what does this have to do with signals? Mimir followed Gu Shanhai to conduct experiments. He must know a lot, and he also has in-depth study of the knowledge of various worlds. Oh, you mean the magic tide? Right. Before Gu Shanhai could answer, Mimir thought of the important point. Is this necessary? The world-destroying frost is rooted in the magic tide. If we only build a binary celestial body this time and deliberately avoid it, it means that the world-destroying frost will only be limited to the gravitational zone and cannot pass through. The magic tide spreads. All fragmented worlds in the future will be able to escape disaster. Mimir's idea is very good, since the world-destroying frost fluctuates with the magic environment formed by the magic tide. Then simply don't let it go and directly trap it to death. Hearing this, Gu Shanhai looked at Mimir strangely. You haven't read the lab report I just made yesterday. Right. It's on the 3rd floor of cabinet number 7. File number 15. Gu Shanhai reminded. It's true that I haven't read it yet. After the experiment yesterday, I went to inspect the equipment. Mimir didn't insist that he had read it. This kind of thing is very strict. If you see it, you have seen it. If you don't see it, you haven't seen it. Gu Shanhai's efficiency was too high, and Mimir couldn't keep up with Gu Shanhai's pace. It took several days for him to see many experimental reports, so there was a time lag. Mimir was also very efficient. He quickly finished reading the experimental report mentioned by Gu Shanhai, which made him frown. Even if there is no magic tidal radiation zone, the frost star will still expand, and the world-destroying frost will still expand. Won't you be restricted? Is there no solution? Mimir read the data. Most of it was obtained through Gu Shanhai's experiments. The reliability was still very high, and because it was only a small-scale experiment, both the power and the effect were actually weakened to an indescribable degree. That's the theory. But in reality, it's not necessarily true. I'm just doing a normal experiment. If the binary star body does not have the outlet of the magic tidal radiation area, the impact and mutual suppression between the binary stars will form high pressure inside. Once the pressure is too high, it will continue to expand. However, the endurance capacity of a binary celestial body is limited, so the end result will definitely be an explosion. So it's not that I want to create a magic tidal radiation area, but I need a sufficient radiation area. Gu Shanhai quickly summarized the situation. If everything goes well, the magic tidal radiation area formed by the early binary stars will actually be able to bring a limited concentration of magic power. And it is impossible to reach the highest concentration of gods, demons, immortals, and demons in later generations during the explosive period, which is a little better than no magic. There is a slight concentration of magic power. It takes time to increase the magic concentration brought by the magic tidal radiation zone. Every rotation of the binary celestial body will release pressure and pour out magic radiation, which is why such a high concentration magic environment will be formed in the future. It seems that we really can't change it casually. Mimir was also a little regretful. The idea was very good, but it was a pity that he could not put it into practice. Of course, the difficulty of making random changes is no less difficult than if we don't extinguish the fire of the burning world through Frost Star. The price must be paid. It just depends on which one you choose, Gu Shanhai said. Then naturally choose the lighter one. Mimir didn't say I don't want them all. This kind of thing is unrealistic. Frost Star gradually moved away from the new world, and its original temperature also recovered somewhat. However, it will probably take a long time to completely return to its original vibrant appearance. Even if there are a few surviving Asa Protoss, it will take a year. After all, the only one related to it is Vidal, a forest god. The others are just Vala. He, the god of gardening and revenge, is responsible for gardening. The remaining one is the god of Hercules, and the other is the god of courage. It's okay to let them hunt, but it's a bit difficult for the gods to let them plant. Frost Star was successful, but the new world's vitality was severely damaged this time, and it may never recover. Mimir called up the corresponding data. The new world, which originally had great potential, has been severely damaged by the Fimbul Winter, the world-destroying Frost, and the Frost Star. Its original potential has not been cut in half, but has been cut directly to the heel. This is a necessary price. If we don't experiment in the new world, where should we do it? There is no more suitable location than here. Gu Shanhai discovered that Mimir was always sad about the autumn, and sad about the spring recently. Fortunately, it did not affect his work. Otherwise, Gu Shanhai would definitely hang his head outside the base to let him cool down. How long has it been since then? And I'm still in the mood to focus on literature and art. You're right. But next, in addition to starting research on hunting stars, can we start the work of reshaping the environment and ecology of the new world together? Mimir also asked. Yes, you can, but you can only do it by yourself. I don't have that much free time. I'll ask you to mobilize some of my resources at most. No matter how much help I have, I won't be able to do it. Gu Shanhai is not an unkind person. Most of his energy will be focused on the creation of the hunting star, the improvement of the binary star celestial structure, the shaping of the magic tidal radiation zone, and a series of other tasks. How can he worry about a small world with a lifespan of only 100 years at most? Compared to the 9 realms, the new world is indeed very small. No problem. I will guide Vidal and the others in their recovery of the new world in my spare time. Mimir also distinguishes priorities. The work in the new world should be done in his spare time, and it should be based on guidance rather than doing it himself. The work of binary stars is even more important. By the way, when do you set the return time of Frost Star? Do we need to conduct maintenance? Mimir asked. He actually didn't know these things. It wasn't that Gu Shanhai deliberately concealed it, but that he couldn't keep up with Gu Shanhai's rhythm, which made him read half-informed and half-baked. Let's return. In 3 years, there will be no need for maintenance. I don't believe there is anyone alive in the 9 realms who dares to look for trouble on Frost Star without opening their eyes, Gu Shanhai said. After Frost Star was activated, it basically entered a stage of independent growth and evolution. As for the route, it was not set by Gu Shanhai, but Frost Star's instinct to move. First of all, the raw material of Frost Star is Fimbul Winter. This thing is a winter. After transformation, it has become something like a concept or a rule. Not even the god King Odin can destroy winter. Actually, there is still a threat. Hattie and Skull are not dead yet. Mimir hesitated and said, Dot! Gu Shanhai was a little bit confused. It seemed like it was true. Hattie and Skull are 2 evil wolves chasing the sun and the moon. They are the descendants of the demon wolf Fenrir. After they swallow the sun and the moon, the demon wolf Fenrir will break free. And then, the world tree will be destroyed by the poisonous dragon. Nidhogg gnawed off the root, and Ragnarok occurred. So now, in fact, there are no celestial bodies in the sky, because they have all entered the bellies of these 2 evil wolves. Then where did these 2 wolves go? Why didn't you see them? Could they be dead like Hela? Gu Shanhai found no trace of Hattie and Skull. I don't know. I was buried in Jotunheim. After the collapse of the world tree, Mimir's knowledge of the Doomsday War that spread to the 9 realms was relatively limited. Therefore, he naturally didn't know where the 2 evil wolves Hattie and Skull went after devouring the celestial body. Then if we catch these 2 wolves, maybe we can dig out the sun and moon from their bellies, Gu Shanhai said, touching his chin. As for Frost Star being targeted by these 2 evil wolves, don't be afraid. They can eat the sun and the moon, but they can't eat the winter, even if they dare to eat it. They will be frozen into large lumps of ice once they enter their stomachs. They dare not touch the fire that burns the world. So they dare to attack the world-destroying Frost? Neither of these are good things. Chapter 6:12 You really spent a lot of money to deceive me. The winter of Fimbul has finally left. Vidal watched the ice and snow melt in the new world. Under his divine power, some of the seeds hidden deep in the soil began to sprout. After the cold dissipated, vitality appeared again. Fortunately, the new world has its own sun. Otherwise, the crops would not be able to survive at all. Val was also very happy when he saw the sprouts. The sun and moon of the 9 realms were devoured by evil wolves. Even if the frost star extinguished the fire that burned the world, many stars would be needed to rebuild. Without the sun alone, most life in the 9 realms would not be able to survive. Mimir gave me the corresponding plan. If everything goes well, within a year, I will be able to rejuvenate the new world. After having something to do, Vital's mental outlook also looked much better. No longer the same as before. Looking a little decadent. Even after experiencing such things, he can take off his reputation as the god of silence. Sometimes Vidal even felt that he had said more during this period than all Escadri said combined. What has Mimir been doing recently? Val asked. In fact, he only knows some general plans. If there are more, he will not be clear. Especially after the frost star took off and took away Fimbul Winter. The actions of Gu Shanhai and Mimir became even more mysterious. In the past, Vidal was able to inquire about things. But recently it has been very abnormal. And there is no way to know what they are going to do. Moreover, Mimir and Gu Shanhai were not in the shelter most of the time. They seemed to be out looking for materials. Vidal once volunteered to help, but was rejected by Mimir, saying that this was not something he should consider. As the god of the new world, he should focus on the restoration and development of the new world instead of beyond such responsibilities. Mimir had spoken to this extent, and Vidal naturally sensed that something was wrong. They must have a plan to hide themselves. However, he did not explore it. Although he wanted to refute what Mimir was right, he also knew that the probability that he could help was too low. He might as well choose to restore the new country that had been harmed by the Fimbul Winter world to see if Asgard can be rebuilt. The number of the Asa clan is a little small. Even if Mimir, who only has his head left, is included, there are only 5. I don't know, but I am sure that I am creating a treasure that can restrain the Fimbul Winter. Vidal responded. He actually preferred to call it Fimbul Winter instead of the Frost Star. Gu is simply a genius. He actually thought of using Fimbul Winter to extinguish fires. The only drawback is that Fimbul Winter cannot be controlled. Otherwise, it would definitely become a powerful weapon. Vala was a little regretful about this. In fact, he was more thinking that Mimir could make it into a weapon. It's a pity that he just thought about it. And he still has a lot in this area. If it could really be made into a weapon or treasure, it wouldn't be like this. After all, you can even control the winter of Fimbul. So wouldn't it be okay to burn the fire of the world? The Fimbul Winter is so terrifying. Even if it becomes a weapon, it is extremely ominous. Vidal is not stupid. Not all the things he creates are good. He remembered the disaster brewed by the Ring of the Nibelungs. Even his father Odin would be tempted. Fortunately, he resisted the temptation at the beginning. Otherwise, it would inevitably lead to disaster. When he heard the word unknown, Valen naturally thought of the Nibelung ring. But he didn't show it. He knew that this was not a good thing. It's indeed very ominous. Vala was silent for a moment. And then, he spoke. In addition to thinking of the Ring of the Nibelungs, he also thought of the god of light, Baldur, and the god of darkness, Badal. They were actually his own brother. He died at the hands of his brother. Of course, from a legal perspective, Hodel, the god of darkness, was not actually Vala's brother when he was killed. After all, he had just been born at the time and had not yet been groomed. So he was not considered a member of the family. But in reality, it was still his hand. Even if this is revenge. Let's go. We still have many places to observe. We can't just stop here. Vidal quickly skipped the topic. They stepped on the slush. And when the wind blew, it was still very cold. But with the powerful physique of their divine race, they are not afraid of this cold. But when it's cold, they drink wine to warm up. Therefore, he took out the strong drink very synchronously, and took a big gulp into his mouth. After drinking the strong drink, they felt their bodies warm up. And it also dispelled their bad moods, making them look much more energetic. There is far more life buried under this land than I imagined. Vidal dug out a large piece of gold from the ground, which was nothing short of a surprise to him. There is actually gold. This is simply unbelievable. Vala quickly started digging, and then he also dug out a piece. There must be a large amount of gold here, and it's not buried deep. This is a good news. The emergence of gold mines is definitely a huge incentive for the surviving Asa clan. One thing they haven't realized yet is that the current value of gold to them is more for viewing, and its original economic value has long since disappeared. As for the magic value and material value, there is some, but not much. How can 4 rough guys have the ability to use gold to enchant or build equipment? Since there is a gold mine, there must be other mineral deposits. It would be better if we could find iron ore. Vidal's face showed a rare joy. Gold mines have economic value, but iron mines are of strategic level. Without iron ore, they wouldn't even be able to make weapons and armor. Without equipment, they were always at a loss, as they were always brave. Their original weapons, armor, etc. had been damaged in previous battles. So when they came to the new world, they only wore some clothes. Fighting each other is just a normal physical fight. In their eyes, this is just a trivial matter and not enjoyable at all. Therefore, as long as iron ore is discovered, they can smelt the equipment they need. This good news must be told to Mimir and others. I believe they will be very happy. Vidal did not forget to share the news. You actually buried a gold mine? Mimir was also a little unbelievable. Not only that, I also buried silver or an iron ore to divert their attention. Otherwise, if they find out about our plan, we might have to make a fuss. Gu Shenhai naturally knew that their next behavior would be terrible. It is called treason and immorality. If Vidal and the others knew that he and Mimir were going to smelt the Silver Hall and the High Throne in Asgard, and use the corpses of Odin, Thor and others as one of the raw materials, even the Nibelungs would if you don't let go of all the rings at the root. It would definitely cause huge commotion. And they would definitely not be willing for Gu Shenhai and Mimir to do this. Then you spent a lot of money, but I didn't expect you to bury it. Mimir also sighed with emotion. In his eyes, this was simply very generous. The gods and giants in Nordic mythology are actually more like a group of powerful humans with desires, likes and dislikes, etc. So their love for gold is naturally self-evident. Gu Shenhai buried a gold mine. If it were placed before Ragnarok, it would have caused a fight. For the sake of planning, you have to pay a price. Gu Shenhai said this. But the actual situation was that not only did he not lose money, he also made a lot of money through the transformation of materials. Whether it is gold or silver or iron ore, it is all paid for by New World itself. Gu Shenhai even took a cut when he was doing the transformation. The cost was borne by New World, and the benefits were taken by Vidal and others. Gu Shenhai also took another profit from it and walked away. From the beginning to the end, New World was the only one who suffered losses. In other cases, there is no loss at all. Therefore, the already poor world has become even worse. What could have lasted 100 years now only lasts for 80 years at most. But it doesn't matter to Gu Shenhai. Even if the whole world collapses into fragments, Gu Shenhai can continue to live. It's just the size of the venue. If that doesn't work, he can live in a binary celestial body. After all, as long as he has a base where he can conduct experiments and study, the requirements are not high. Even as long as the site is needed, he can do the rest, whether it's construction or equipment. I always thought this was not included in your plan. Mimir also sighed with emotion. This is very emotionally intelligent. The low EQ is that you are so stingy that you actually paid for it this time. Originally, there was none. But in order to speed up the progress, I had to spend money to avoid disaster. Gu Shenhai acted melancholy, as if he had lost his crotch. Gu Shenhai is very knowledgeable about keeping his wealth secret. Otherwise, if someone knows that he is rich, what if someone robs him? Then where should we go next? To find the fire-burning Siegfried's body, or to go to the Silver Hall in Asgard? Mimir asked. Gu Shenhai thought for a moment, and then said, Let's go find the Shinhua first. It's too late to get this thing. It will be difficult if it is destroyed by the frost that destroys the world. His world-destroying frost is not the original version of later generations, but his own version, which is much more powerful. So it is really possible that it will be destroyed by freezing. Okay, let's go to Midgard first. Mimir originally let Gu Shenhai choose, instead of saying where he wanted to go. So he should go to the Silver Hall in Asgard first, or go to Midgard to find Chi Guofei's body is indifferent. Chapter 6:13, The Golden Ring in the Fire. Where are the corpses? Gu Shanhai watched the flame swaying in front of him. The corpses of Siegfried and Valkyrie Brunhilde had disappeared, leaving only a gold ring burning in the flames. This gold ring is naturally the Nibelung ring. It was burned to ashes. How can this thing still be there? Mimir said that this was normal. What you said makes sense. After hearing this, Gu Shanhai felt that it was normal. Real gold is not afraid of fire. It can be burned by humans. But there is a saying about gold, so it cannot turn into a ghost when burned. Obviously, this thing still has magical powers, but it is isolated by the flames. Otherwise, it would have been taken away long ago. Whether they are humans, dwarfs, giants, or even gods, few have a ring that can resist the Nibelungs. Even Odin would be tempted, let alone others. Therefore, after being isolated by the flames, everything settled. The ring of the Nibelung has a powerful bewitching ability. We need to be careful to obtain it. Otherwise, Mimir's words were not finished yet when he saw Gu Shanhai reach out and grab it. He took out the gold ring. And it was not only a gold ring, but also a flame, which also moved with the Nibelung ring. What did you say otherwise? Gu Shanhai glanced at Mimir. You were not affected by the golden ring? Mimir looked extremely surprised. No. This thing has been beeping. Talking about making me the king of the world. I think now we can't even make up the number of 2 hands. If I want to say that I am the king of the world, you won't either. I will object. So I just think this thing is farting. Gu Shanhai thought. This golden ring is not smart at all. However, in addition to this, there is also a certain corrosiveness, which has a strong corrosive effect on the spirit, soul, character, etc. If you cannot resist it, you will indeed be controlled by the golden ring and become someone who only wants to gain power. Slave. This. Although Mimir knew that Gu Shanhai must have resisted on his own. When he said these words and the reason, he still couldn't help laughing. This thing is still very powerful. No wonder even Odin is tempted. Gu Shanhai's evaluation of the golden ring is still very high. Especially the current golden ring, which is still a complete version. Unlike the previous one that Gu Shanhai obtained from the King of Hunters. The version obtained online is directly a broken version. This thing should be the core of the Hunter King. Otherwise, how to distinguish the difference between the Hunter King and the Ghost Hunter? Fire is also derived from it. And the characteristic of burning the soul of the strong as fuel should also be born from this. Are you sure everything is okay? Mimir couldn't help but ask again. You're fine. Why should I be fine? Gu Shanhai looked at Mimir with a strange expression. How could he be so clueless? Because there is isolation from the flames. And I didn't touch the gold ring directly. So it's okay. If I touch the gold ring directly, I will be affected and eventually be controlled by the gold ring. Mimir said that this thing was coated with a protective film. And since he did not come into direct contact through the protective film, he would be fine. You know quite a lot. Gu Shanhai teased. Then put it into his arms. And then said slowly, if even I could control it, I wouldn't be limited here. If the Ring of the Nibelungs had really been able to control the world, it would not have ended up like this. With such a powerful ability to bewitch, not to mention Odin, all the gods, giants, etc. would be affected by it. Control. For Gu Shanhai, the fire was of great value, but the ring itself was of little value. If it were not bound together, Gu Shanhai would not even look at it. Well, this must be a fake, and would only be used for collection. After putting away the golden ring, Mimir also breathed a sigh of relief, which confirmed that Gu Shanhai was indeed not controlled. If he had become a ring slave after being seduced by power, Gu Shanhai would now be unable to put it down and look at the gold ring greedily. How could he be willing to let go of it? Whether you are being controlled or not can be seen at a glance. What happened back then? Why was the magic gold at the bottom of the Rhine River able to create such a powerful ring? Gu Shanhai asked curiously. Destiny. Everything is determined by guidance. Even he didn't know what Mimir meant. But in the end, it was caused by greed and jealousy. If the Nibelung dwarf Alberich hadn't been twisted by love, this situation wouldn't have happened. At this time, Mimir's tone was filled with helplessness. Yeah. I don't want to know about this nonsense. Gu Shanhai interrupted the other party. When he heard the name Alberich, Gu Shanhai knew that this was the story of the Nibelungenlied. Although I don't know the details. But I still know the general outline. It's nothing more than stealing gold and making it into a ring if courtship fails. And then, there are all kinds of grudges and hatreds, eventually leading to Siegfried's death. It is indeed not a good thing. And it has already happened. It has no meaning. After hearing Gu Shanhai's words, Mimir did not continue, but changed the topic. Then let's go to Asgard next. Hall of Silver? There's no rush. Let's collect the data on Froststar first. We have to keep up with the follow-up research and review. Otherwise, what if something goes wrong along the way? At this stage, Froststar has not completed a revolution. Even if the data on paper and preliminary operation are fine, we still have to be cautious. Gu Shenhai knew that even though Mimir had been with him for so long, he still had not developed corresponding thinking. At least in terms of rigor, there were still many problems. For example, after he succeeded, he did not think about continuing to observe, but thought that there won't be any problems. But this is not Mimir's problem, but the limitations of the times. He lives in the age of mythology. At first glance, he seems to be very noble, but in fact, it is sometimes synonymous with wilderness, ancient times, and backwardness. This resulted in his thinking not being so perfect. What's more important is that Gu Shenhai also discovered that the pollution on Mimir's body began to burst out. Mimir hasn't noticed it yet, but he should be aware of the problem with his head after a while. Symptoms of pollution include sluggishness, confusion, memory loss, etc. Gu Shenhai had been keeping records of Mimir's situation, so he found out the problem through data analysis. And this should only be an initial symptom. Gu Shenhai is not sure how it will develop in the future. You are still thoughtful. The Silver Hall and the Supreme Throne will not disappear. On the contrary, if a problem arises on Froststar and is not solved in time, it will definitely bring us a great crisis. Mimir also agreed with Gu Shenhai. Practice. I came here to find the fire because I was afraid of extinguishing it, so I had to come. However, the Silver Hall and the High Throne are very sturdy in Asgard, so there is no need to worry about them being damaged. Besides, even if it is damaged, there is still a replacement. Unlike if the fire is damaged, then you can only risk using the fire of the burning world. The double-star celestial body plan is essentially a matter of adding water to the surface, and adding surface to the water, in order to find a balance point that can allow the world to survive. The idea is not a roundabout one. You might as well stop calling yourself a wise giant. Just call yourself a skull giant. Gu Shenhai suspected that pollution had long ago caused Mimir's thinking and cognitive problems. Otherwise, this situation would not occur. Actually, I don't call myself one, and there is no giant race like a wise giant, Mimir said honestly. That's such a pity. Gu Shenhai expressed regret over this. Soon after, Gu Shenhai caught up with the Froststar. When this celestial body passed by in the sky, the fire that burned the world would be suppressed by the low temperature. Although it would not be extinguished immediately, it would lose its original arrogance. There is still a gap between Finnbull's winter and the fire that burns the world. Mimir looked at this scene and was quite satisfied. If it can't be solved by one revolution, then it will be better to revolve it several times. Froststar has just been born. It's already very good to be able to achieve this level. A child can simply suppress an adult. This is a gift. Gu Shenhai knew that this was just the beginning. Sooner or later there would be a gap. Complementary. If the fire of the burning world cannot be made into another celestial body due to phase issues, otherwise the fire of the burning world should be really used to suppress the world-destroying frost. These two are on the same level. The classification of levels is actually quite interesting. In addition to the world-destroying frost and the burning world fire, which are on the same level, Fimbulwinter is on the second level, while fire is on the third level. However, if the fire is made into a hunting star, it can jump to the same level as the world-destroying frost and the world-burning fire. It's a pity that I didn't bring auxiliary equipment, so I can't effectively observe the Froststar. Mimir was a little regretful. It's okay. It doesn't matter if you can observe it or not, as long as I can observe it. Gu Shenhai didn't care about this at all. As Froststar moved, Gu Shenhai quickly completed an inspection by recording and comparing the data. There are no problems with the overall operation and data of Froststar. The probability of subsequent operations according to the paper data is as high as 90%. However, regular inspections are still necessary. After all, this is the first operation. You don't have to worry about the next operation. Gu Shenhai after putting away all the equipment and records. A result was given. So who will record and compare it later? Mimir asked. It's not me anyway. Let's see if the doll and the others are free then. Just ask them to come. Gu Shenhai can do it for the first time. But he will definitely not let Gu Shenhai come in the future. He just needs to accepting the report is not a very difficult task. With the help of equipment, It is also very easy. Chapter 6:14, Hattie and Skull. The evil wolves that devour the sun and moon. How do you pry this thing away? Gu Shanhai looked at the supreme throne with a solemn expression. If you use violence, it may cause damage. So you need to be careful. Mimir also ignored this matter. It was obvious that the pollution had further eroded him. Otherwise, how could such a thing not be considered? As for Gu Shanhai, he originally considered it. But it was different from normal logic. His original idea was to take away the entire Silver Hall. So he never considered the Supreme Throne at all. After all, the Silver Hall has been packed away, so there is no need to consider the High Throne. The question is how to be cautious? Gu Shanhai checked it, and found that the function of the Supreme Throne to view the 9 realms had failed. No, it's not that it failed, but that as Asgard fell into the abyss, the vision was no longer so good. Vidal was able to use it before because he hadn't fallen so deep. So he could see that after they left, the collapse of the World Tree was naturally accompanied by Asgard's decline. If Gu Shanhai wants to remove it, it will take a certain amount of time, and the connection must be disconnected. The Supreme Throne should be the key for ghost hunters to detect the souls of powerful people in the magic tidal radiation area. In other words, this thing is the radar of the hunting star. Can it be removed? Mimir asked. Yes, but I plan to dismantle the Silver Hall. Gu Shanhai has no intention of dismantling the High Throne. What is the purpose of dismantling this thing? It is a waste of time and effort. It would be better to be simple and attack the Silver Hall directly. Of course, the workload will not be reduced. After all, the two cannot be confused. Even if the Supreme Throne is in the Silver Hall. Mimir didn't speak, and just watched Gu Shanhai's actions quietly. In less than 5 minutes, the entire Silver Hall disappeared, and Gu Shanhai took everything into his long sleeves. We've got the materials. Let's go on next. Mimir rambled on about the plan. These words were not meant for Gu Shanhai to hear, but for himself to enhance his memory. He also noticed that his memory seemed to have declined a lot. However, Gu Shanhai didn't listen at all. After he stood up, he looked towards the sky. Hattie and Skull appeared, chasing the Frost Star. These 2 wolves were hiding so deep. I thought they were dead. Gu Shanhai suspected that because Frost Star happened to pass by Hattie and Skull's hiding place, he finally couldn't stand the temptation. So he came out this time. But then again, the sons and grandsons Loki gave birth to are all weird. He was also quite confused. Speaking of Loki, he looked like a human being. As a result, the children he gave birth to were Jormungandr, Fenrir, and the 8-legged horse given to Odin were also his sons. Mimir didn't answer, and he didn't know what was going on. It seems that the saying, dragon and phoenix present auspiciousness, is true. Gu Shanhai came up with a homophonic joke. But there are no humanoid descendants of Loki. But in terms of strength, these inhuman beings are extremely powerful. Can you stop lamenting here and go there quickly? If you're late, Frost Star might be eaten. The current Frost Star is not the Frost Star of later generations. It is not even as good as the moon. It is normal for it to be swallowed in one gulp. Mimir urged Gu Shanhai to take action quickly and stop looking at it. Gu Shanhai also took action immediately and arrived at the battlefield in an instant. In the sky, 2 evil wolves were chasing the Frost Star. Because the distance was too close, Hattie and Skull had a thick layer of frost and snow on their bodies. It's just that these 2 evil wolves didn't care about this at all, and instead chased them crazily. It was also thanks to the fact that Frost Star's movement speed was somewhat counterintuitive, much faster than ordinary stars, that it was not caught up by Hattie and Skull immediately. These 2 things are really unique. Gu Shanhai did not take action immediately. According to his calculations, if Hattie and Skull want to catch up to the Frost Star, it will take half an hour, unless they can explode. Sun Wolf and Moonhound. These names are indeed very loud. At this time, Gu Shanhai couldn't help but think of the nicknames of these 2 wolves. They were not given by Gu Shanhai, but were given by someone in his previous life. If you say that Skull is the wolf of the sun, I will agree with you. But the Moonhound is not suitable for Hattie. It is a wolf. A bad wolf. Mimir also saw the difference between these 2 bad wolves in a short period of time. He couldn't swallow the Frost Star, so he breathed a sigh of relief. It makes sense. A wolf is a wolf. Gu Shanhai agreed. Although dogs were domesticated from wolves, wolves are not dogs after all. Immediately, Gu Shanhai picked up 2 stones and threw them at Hattie and Skull. Without any accident, it hit the 2 wolves in the head. Fortunately, Gu Shanhai controlled his force and did not use too much force. So the two wolves were knocked unconscious, then fell from the sky and hit the ground straight up. If they don't stop their efforts, Hattie and Skull will be able to form a CP with Mimir. After all, Mimir has no body, and they both have no brains. The difference is that they will most likely not be able to survive without their heads, unlike Mimir, who can still survive without their bodies. It's really like a baby's sleep. Gu Shanhai reached out and pinched Hattie's face. The hair was not very soft, but like steel needles. I don't know if it's because it's frozen so hard or if it's just that hard in the first place. Concussion. But there should be no problem. Gu Shanhai checked and found that in addition to being comatose, the two wolves were also concussed by his blow. As Loki's grandsons, Hattie and Skull's physical fitness is still very good. Isn't it just a small concussion? It's a minor problem, and they can recover directly without even waiting for them to wake up. When the time comes, use these two evil wolves as the first fuel for the fire as a memorial, Mimir said. Mimir had no mercy at all for Hattie and Skull. As one of the murderers in the Doomsday Battle of Ragnarok, Mimir will naturally not show mercy. You are too partial, Gu Shanhai teased. You are so kind to Mandy and Modi, but Hattie and Skull are so cruel. You are partial to the big house and suppress the little house. In terms of relationship, the two evil wolves Hattie and Skull are actually brothers to the two brothers Mandy Moody. Mandy is the grandson of Odin, and Odin and Loki are sworn brothers. So if the relationship continues like this, they will become relatives. How about I give it to you? Mimir did not reason with Gu Shanhai because he knew that this was unreasonable. It's better to let him be the butt of the hob and throw the problem directly to Gu Shanhai. Forget it. Your family's affairs are so messed up that I can't get involved at all. Gu Shanhai just joked that although the family relationships in the Nordic mythology are not as messy as those in the Greek mythology, they are not messy either. What a good person. Fortunately, he died completely. Otherwise, if he had really plunged in when Loki was around, I'm afraid he wouldn't have been in trouble every day. Hattie and Skull were quickly collected by Gu Shanhai, and then suppressed easily, ensuring that they might not be able to wake up before they died. After entering, it is natural to take samples, collect data and other processes, even though it was intended to be used as a sacrifice. Since it was in Gu Shanhai's hands, he had to get it anyway. Otherwise he would only have a harvest. These two evil wolves still have value. After all, one swallowed the sun, and the other swallowed the moon. It's done. I hope there will be more extra gains. Gu Shanhai knew that there were still many survivors in these 9 realms. This type of survivor is very powerful, and is still very valuable to Gu Shanhai. If the Supreme Throne can still be used, then maybe it can still be found. Mimir was a little regretful. You don't have to use the Supreme Throne. You can also use the Frost Star to fish. Gu Shanhai looked at the Frost Star. In Gu Shanhai's eyes, this thing is a big scourge and a coordinate. But the other survivors don't know that. They only know that this star can suppress the fire that burns the world. Then this must be a treasure. Most likely, he wants to keep it for himself. Just like Hattie and Skull. The difference is that these two evil wolves want to swallow it. This is not a good suggestion. Mimir immediately rejected Gu Shanhai's idea of using Frost Star to fish. This thing involves the safety of the world. How could Mimir risk it? This is naturally impossible. It's not something I can avoid just because I don't want to do it. Gu Shanhai found that Mimir seemed to have lost his IQ again. The Frost Star circulated throughout the 9 realms, and would inevitably pass through all places. So being seen was absolute. This, Mimir's expression also changed. Is there something wrong with me? A little bit. But it's not a big deal. Gu Shanhai tried to comfort him. It was really not a big deal. Because Gu Shanhai couldn't be saved. So he could just wait to die. There was no need to struggle. Are you sure? Mimir always felt that Gu Shanhai was lying. Of course it's true. When have I ever lied to you? Gu Shanhai strengthened his persuasive ability through the wisdom halo. That's good. The effect was outstanding. And Mimir believed it. After all these years, the wisdom-lowering aura is the best. Gu Shanhai couldn't help but complain. Even the healing technique was not as useful as his wisdom-lowering aura. It has been a long time since he used physical persuasion, but instead used mental persuasion. Lower the other party's IQ first, and then convince the other party. The other party will not only be persuaded by poor language, but also have no doubts. Do you want me to specialize in eloquence or charm in the future? Gu Shanhai thought about changing his major. After all, healing techniques were rarely used. Chapter 6:15, Humans in the Hedmamir Forest. Spring has begun, and the new world has finally regained its vitality. Vidal couldn't help but sigh, with a look of relief on his face. Today is the 3rd month since Gu Shanhai and Mimir left. They did not enter the laboratory to investigate, but Mimir left an automatic message. If it was not cancelled within a month, it would automatically play, telling Vidal that they did not need to worry about him. That's why I found out the situation. However, they did not stop performing their duties just because people were away. On the contrary, they worked diligently to guard and protect them every day to avoid accidents. Of course, it's still rotation. It's a pity that there are only plants. It would be better if there were animals. Vala couldn't help but feel a little regretful as he looked at this lush area. Why don't we create it ourselves? Father, Willie and Wei used an ash tree and an elm tree to create humans. We can also follow suit. Vala suddenly had a flash of inspiration. Odin, Willie, and V are brothers, the children of Bauer and the giantess Bestila. The cause was that when Odin, Willie and V were walking on the beach, the waves washed up 2 pieces of wood. One was an ash tree, and the other was an elm tree. After the gods picked them up, they felt that they could be used as materials for the creation of humans. So they began to carve them into 2 human shapes with knives. Thanks to the careful carvings of the gods, the ash wood took on the lifelike shape of a man, while the elm wood took on the form of a woman. Next, there are gifts. Odin gives life and breathing. Willie gives wisdom and soul. And Wei gives body temperature and 5 senses. The male one is called ash tree, and the female one is called elm tree. Of course, the transliteration is different. The former is called Ask, and the latter is called Ipola. This is the origin of mankind in Norse mythology. Vidal was thinking about Vala's proposal. This matter was not impossible. He could feel that he seemed to be taking over his father's authority little by little. Creating humans did not seem to be difficult for him. Practice? No need. As mythological characters, they have no so-called hierarchy at all. And there is no such thing as perfection or great perfection. But there are battles and hardships. After all, they are a warlike nation. Maybe it's not the right time now. As you know, the fire that burned the world has not been extinguished. And Mimir and Gu have not returned. We have to communicate with them about this matter. Vidal knew that if he took the risk, if he acted right away, it might affect Gu Shanhai and Mimir's plans. It doesn't matter. If you create them now, we can teach them bit by bit. Vala didn't care too much about this and felt that Vidal was making too much of a fuss. You must know that Mimir and Gu Shanhai have been hiding in the shelter and not coming out, as long as they don't let humans get close to the shelter. Furthermore, given Gu Shanhai and Mimir's personalities, they wouldn't care if they did these things. No, it's still not possible. Vidal thought for a moment and still rejected Vala's statement. It doesn't mean that it can be done without any impact. Otherwise, we will plant the Hedmimir forest and let them live in the forest. If we don't create it in advance, when Frostar comes back in 3 years, I'm afraid we will have to face another cold winter. As long as you take good care of humans, there won't be any problems. Vala kept egging Vidal on. This made Vidal not know what to say for a moment. But he only felt that what Vala said made sense. Hedmimir Forest? Maybe this can happen. Vidal muttered quietly. Hedmimir Forest means the woodland of Mimir's secrets. If Gu Shanhai were here, he would understand that if the original plot did not deviate, there were 2 second-generation human ancestors in the Hedmimir Forest, named Libu and Riptrasil. They feed on the morning dew. Although I don't know where the dew comes from in the flames. That's what people record. Anyway, he survived, and then met Vidal and other Asa Protoss, and finally started to branch out again. However, due to the butterfly effect, Vidal never went to or passed through the Hedmimir Forest at all. So he never met these 2 people. So now, these first 2 generations of human ancestors are now cold. No, they should be familiar with each other. Of course, Vidal and the others did not expect that humans could survive. They had never thought about this from the beginning. This is simply beyond common sense. But why the Hedmimir Forest? Vidal asked with some confusion. If you are not satisfied, you can also change it to the Heka Forest. Vala said this, directly changing from the woodland of Mimir's secret hideout to the woodland of Gu's secret hideout. Anyway, the name can be given to anyone. The main thing is to express your stance. Let's choose the Hedmimir Forest. Vidal still did not change it to the Heka Forest. After all, if something happened, Mimir would be there to help take the blame. And Mimir might be able to take the blame. After all, it is Mimir's name. I'm going to look for ash and elm trees. Vala said without hesitation. When Vidal chose to plant the Hedmamere forest, he actually agreed to create humans. Otherwise, we would not choose to plant a forest. As for choosing the forest, it is also because Vidal is the god of the forest. Of course, it depends on what is suitable. Watching Vala go away, Vidal felt a little helpless. He didn't know whether his move was good or bad. But he was sure that after having gold, silver and iron mines, if they had humans again, they would the mental state of the four Aesir will be better. These days, the two brothers Mandy and Modi are no longer as decadent and helpless as before, but appear to be in high spirits. He also has a lot of motivation, unlike before, who lived with pessimistic thoughts. It's just Valley that he can find the ash and elm trees. Vidal was a little worried. First of all, there are trees in this new world, but these two tree species are seedlings and are not suitable at all. If you want it, you can only look for it in the fallen old world. The Nine Realms. Fortunately, since the Frost Star took off, the threat of burning world fire has been greatly reduced. In addition, the gods and giants are almost dead, so there should be no danger. Vidal was actually worried that Vala couldn't find these two trees. After 10 days of waiting, Vala finally came back after a long journey. When he returned, a small forest sprang up. The reason why there is a small word is because these trees are only half the height of a person. They are just small trees. See if these are enough. We can create a tribe directly. Vala placed a lot of ash and elm trees on the ground. No, I can't directly create a tribe. Vidal shook his head. I can only create a man and a woman and let them multiply. This is the limitation of authority. Even Father Odin and his brothers worked together to create Ask and Epila. If they could really create so many humans, how could they only create two? What? Because the waves came in twice at that time, which was a bit strange. So wouldn't they look for it again? So it is essentially a limitation of authority. One man and one woman is the limit. Wally's face clearly showed regret, but he quickly calmed down. It doesn't matter. Together we can protect the number of humans to increase again. This situation gave Vala an immersive feeling when his father Odin created humans. Odin created humans in the same way back then. And now, he can experience it once too. Vidal didn't say much, but calmed down, took out a section of ash tree, and started carving. His hands were very flexible, and a man's appearance appeared so lifelike. And then a woman was carved out of elm tree. The two statues just stood in front of me. I give you life and breath. I give you wisdom and soul. I give you warmth and 5 senses. As the 5 words fell, the 2 wooden sculptures began to come alive, and then turned into 2 humans. Let's call you Lib and Ritrasil. Vidal looked at the confused and overwhelmed humans in front of him, and gave them names. The meanings of these 2 names are life, and the maintenance of vitality respectively, which represent the rebirth of human beings. With the completion of human creation, Vidal can feel that his authority over the new world has taken a step further. Perhaps before long, his status and authority in the new world will be like that of his father Odin in the 9 realms. King. It's just that he, the God King, is a bit awkward. He is either a younger brother or a nephew. And the only 2 humans have just been born. As for going to Gu Shanhai and Mimir to show off their power, Vidal is not this kind of god. Yes, great god. The 2 humans quickly came to their senses, and thanked Vidal for giving them life. Vidal began to teach Lib and Ritrasil how they should survive and live, and warned them not to go near the shelter. With each of his teachings, Vidal could feel his authority growing further. And he also discovered that the humans born in the new world seemed to be different from the humans in Midgard. But he couldn't tell the specific differences. At this time, he also knew how to accelerate the integration of authority. He needed to recreate various races in the new world. Not only humans, but also elves, dwarfs, giants, etc. It's just that I need enough materials. Vidal thought to himself. Humans need ash and elm trees, and dwarfs can use soil and rocks. This is easy to find. But what about elves and giants? I'm afraid Vala needs to go out and continue searching. Wally, I need you to do me a favor. Vidal said directly without any pretense. Chapter 616 Mimir's Decreasing Wisdom. It's interesting that Vidal actually created a human being. Gu Shanhai said suddenly after stuffing a corpse into his arms. How did he do it? Mimir's expression also changed slightly. This is not a good thing. It means that Vidal's involvement with the new world is getting deeper and deeper. That's how it was done. Gu Shanhai didn't know that. Through remote retrieval, he saw Vidal carving 2 humanoid wood sculptures, and then said 3 sentences. Then, the wood sculpture came to life, and became a human being. He actually knew this scene. This was how Odin created humans. However, he did not expect that Vidal would imitate and succeed. This was indeed beyond his expectation. Actually, I don't quite understand why Vidal would create humans at this juncture. It's not the right time at all. Gu Shanhai was also a little confused about this. The best time is naturally to wait until Gu Shanhai and Mimir solve the burning world fire and completely construct the binary system. And then there will be a stable time. This time is the most appropriate. There's one more thing I don't understand. And that's where Valet found the ash and elm trees. Gu Shanhai could tolerate the others, but this one made him look like a fool. Someone could actually find trees in a world that had been burned for several years. Not to mention the Asa clan. Even the White Hat clan. Perhaps, after we left, they were influenced by the New World. Mimir said, "These things are indeed full of doubts. Especially Vidal's sudden creation of human beings is completely illogical." Vidal once hesitated, but he was convinced. Gu Shanhai also thought the same way. The New World has new everything. So naturally many species are needed. Gu Shanhai's existence before could not affect Vidal and others. But after Gu Shanhai left, without his protection, everything would naturally return to its original trajectory. Maybe this is his fate. Mimir said nothing. Because now, everything is too late. Vidal is completely bound to the New World. Not only him, but also the two brothers Vala and Mandy Moody. Another thing is that it is impossible for them to rush back for this matter now. Because rushing back will be useless, and there is no possibility of success. There is no fate or fate. Gu Shanhai sneered at this. It was nothing more than the influence of the world. Now Vidal is on the same path as Odin was back then. The good news is that this time, there is no such trap as World Tree. The bad news is that the world is about to collapse. So Vidal was worse off than Odin. He inherited a mess. What's even worse is that Vidal obviously doesn't have Odin's powerful abilities. After all, Odin drank from the fountain of knowledge and wisdom, and hung himself upside down on the World Tree, stabbed with a spear, and sacrificed himself to himself, thus obtaining the runes and tarot. The hanging man in the card is taken from this symbol. In addition, Odin also has many powers, which are far beyond what Vidal can match. But it is precisely because Odin took too much, coupled with the existence of fate and the World Tree, that Ragnarok cannot be avoided at all. Of course, without these things, Odin wouldn't be Odin. What do you seem to know? Mimir asked curiously. Well, I know some things, but it's not important. Gu Shanhai didn't say it. Even if he did, Mimir might not be able to remember it. After all, he had already seen the obscure lines appearing on Mimir's head. These lines are full of distortions, eroding Mimir's wisdom little by little. Perhaps before long, Mimir will be completely eroded by pollution and become an irrational monster. Why are you looking at me? Mimir asked strangely. When he asked this question, the lines on his head also disappeared. Have you noticed that your death is coming? Gu Shanhai asked straightforwardly. I feel it already. My wisdom is diminishing day by day, and I don't know where it comes from. I guess you can't solve it either. Mimir's tone was very calm, and he didn't feel any unwillingness or anger at all. To him, it seemed very normal. After all, if Gu Shanhai could solve it, it wouldn't be delayed until now. Well, I have no way to solve it, and I can only rely on you, if your will is strong enough. Gu Shanhai said this, paused, and finally said, maybe you can delay your death for a few days. According to normal logic, Gu Shanhai should not be talking about dying a few days later, but about being able to survive. It's a pity that not only did he not play his cards according to the routine, but the pollution also didn't play his cards according to the routine. Then if I shout, I think I can still be saved. Can you save me? Mimir didn't care at all that he would die, but instead made a joke. Then I can't save him and just wait to die. Say goodbye. Gu Shanhai also responded. It was possible to save him, but the problem was that it was too difficult. Gu Shanhai didn't have much confidence. If he succeeded, it would be fine. But if he failed, then the problem would be huge. Not only did he offend the person, but he failed to save the person. He directly lost double the amount. If he didn't save him, he would only lose one Mimir at most. His loss was not big. Mimir didn't have much value. Gu Shanhai took him just because he thought he could give him a leg up and had a small amount of research value. Of course, the research value was gone now because he had already studied Mimir. When are you going to start building the hunting star? Mimir did not continue teasing, but changed the topic back to the topic. He knew that he didn't have much time left, and he might not be able to see the birth of the hunting star. But he still held on to hope, just in case Gu Shenhai was ready to start now. I'm afraid you won't be able to see the birth of the hunting star. The time I need to prepare is too late for you, Gu Shenhai said straightforwardly. It would take at least a year to start construction. And then construction, Gu Shenhai had deduced, would take 2 years, which meant that it would be completed after 3 years. The reason why it took so long was not because of the craftsmanship of the hunting star, but because Gu Shenhai not only had to make the hunting star, but also perfected the construction of the binary star structure and the magic tidal radiation zone. And more importantly, projected the coordinates. He did this naturally to successfully break through the bottleneck of the bug. Otherwise, it was really to save the world. Then Gu Shenhai would not gain anything. So why would he do this? After all, the impact of the broken world on him was not great. That's such a pity, Mimir also said regretfully. In fact, Mimir has evaluated his own situation. When his wisdom is still relatively strong, maybe within a month at most, his wisdom will completely disappear, and he will get lost in himself, and finally become an unconscious person. Head. What happens next? Mimir doesn't know. After saying this, the atmosphere became a little dull for a while. Gu Shenhai ignored it, and went about his own work. Why should he coax you out of your bad mood? After living for so many years, if your emotional management is still so bad, then there is no need to mess around. I want to return to the fountain of knowledge and wisdom in Jotunheim, and I beg you to help me. I will be buried at the bottom of the spring after my death, even though the spring of knowledge and wisdom has disappeared now. After Gu Shenhai restrained the body of a certain god, Mimir spoke. Of course. No problem. What color do you want for the urn? It should be considered a funeral at your age. Otherwise, I would give you a bright red and purple one. Gu Shenhai responded casually. Mimir also smiled when he heard this. Can you help me carve Yggdrasil and the 9 realms on the urn? Of course, there is no problem. My skills are guaranteed to be vivid. When the time comes, I will show you the location of the fountain of knowledge and wisdom to prove your identity. Gu Shenhai is still very generous. It's just an urn. It's a small problem. By the way, do you want me to write the epitaph for you? I have good calligraphy skills. Gu Shenhai thought. Since the urn is already there, the epitaph must be indispensable. This is unnecessary. The 9 realms are destined to be shattered. It would be a bit embarrassing to separate my epitaph from the urn. Mimir rejected Gu Shenhai's offer to write his epitaph. Okay, then what material do you want this urn to be made of? Are there any taboos? I recommend using locust wood. Maybe one day you can unveil the coffin and raise the box. Gu Shenhai thought about it, and maybe he could keep it. Raising corpses. With Mimir's qualifications. As long as he cultivates a zombie, he is guaranteed to be a demon. The only disadvantage is that he has no body, but only a head. But if only the head is left, he can continue to cultivate in the direction of Fitumen. And he can directly go 2 steps. Root. No. I think your best way is to crush my bones and scatter my ashes instead of putting my head directly into the urn. After all, it is for the ashes, not the head. Mimir said that you have to use the urn to the right way. Putting the ashes in the urn instead of the head is obviously a wrong usage. Hey, you are more reasonable than me. You said crushing the bones and raising ashes. Then crush the bones and raise ashes. Gu Shenhai knew what Mimir meant. He was just worried about the pollution on his body. So the best way was to burn it, to avoid becoming a source of pollution in the future. Mimir didn't care much about his own body. If he had cared about it, he wouldn't be left with only one head now. The fact that he wants a body is actually very simple. It is not too difficult for Odin to resurrect him and create another body for him. Gu Shenhai also asked Mimir why. But Mimir didn't say anything. So the matter naturally dropped. He won't force it. It's best if he can satisfy his curiosity. If he can't, there will be no loss. Chapter 6:17 Mimir's treatment of the eminent monk. A large number of lines crowded on Mimir's head. At this time, he had already lost consciousness, and the whites of his eyes covered his eyeballs. But he still spoke, and Gu Shenhai couldn't hear what he was saying. He suspected it was some unconscious babble. I'm sick. It seems there's no way to save him. Gu Shenhai felt a little regretful. Mimir lasted for another month and a half after the pollution lines appeared. Gu Shenhai expected it to be 1 month. But he didn't expect that his will was so strong that he suddenly got an extra month and a half. In the second half of the month, Mimir had already experienced various symptoms such as trance and lack of energy. It was obvious that even with a strong will, he could not resist the necrosis of the physical body, which ultimately led to this result. But now Mimir is not dead yet. He has just turned into a corrosive body similar to a zombie. Fortunately, there is good news. The other party's pollution has disappeared. That's right. It disappeared. This pollution is only for intelligence. Everything he had gained from the fountain of knowledge and wisdom was now returned to him. It is certain that he had these debts from the beginning. Now it can be regarded as the death debt is wiped out. He should have cancelled his debt before. But unexpectedly he met Gu Shanhai and reached out to save him. As a result, he did not die. But the other party came to pursue his life. If he hadn't been rescued by Gu Shanhai, his death would certainly not have been so painful and would have been immediate. As a result, he was unlucky and was rescued by Gu Shanhai, only to suffer torture all these years. Sure enough, this thing is not easy to get. Gu Shanhai was also glad that he had not coveted this world tree leaf before. In his previous life, he dared to take it because he had the first era behind him, and the other party might have given it to him on purpose. Even after he was reborn, he dared to take it. He was a temporary worker in the first era. He didn't look at the monk's face, but the Buddha's face. If the other party knew about it, he wouldn't be embarrassed. Things are different now. Gu Shanhai and his backstage are gone. If he reaches out for it again, he will end up like Mimir. The rules of the first era say that there will be consequences at your own risk. But if people don't touch you for his sake, they are essentially borrowing the skin of a tiger. After losing the tiger's skin, Gu Shanhai became much more cautious when handling things. Theoretically speaking, Mimir should not be considered dead. Gu Shanhai held his head and examined it carefully. It looks like he died of being polluted. But in reality, it's more like he was sent away after being inspired. It does look like it. After Gu Shanhai checked it, he could confirm with a 70% probability that this thing was definitely not dead, but was just taken away. Mimir is more like a fanatic believer in the world tree. He let him die before because he didn't want him to continue to be unlucky in the broken world. So he wanted to take him away. However, something went wrong, and he was intercepted by Gu Shanhai. Fortunately, the other party did not give up, and still worked tirelessly to take Mimir away. During the process of pulling between the two parties, Mimir became this kind of character. In the end, the opponent naturally won and took Mimir away. After learning about this situation, Gu Shanhai was a little bit dumbfounded. What kind of thing was this? Here you are not dead at all, but ascended. As for the possibility that the remaining 30% might really die and could no longer die, Gu Shanhai just ignored it. If you die, you will die. What else can Gu Shanhai do? In Mimir's case, not even healing techniques could revive him. It's a pity that my newly created Mimir version of artificial intelligence was originally intended to replace you. Now that you are not fully dead, the epitaph should be unnecessary. Gu Shanhai originally thought of letting him ascend mechanically, an artificial intelligence that possesses all of Mimir's memories and personality model. It was installed on his urn to serve as an epitaph. If anyone could dig out Mimir's urn in the future, they might be able to talk to him. The underworld is a little bit more like the underworld, and it is really exciting if you can't stand it. Okay, stop biting. Don't break a tooth when the time comes. Gu Shanhai looked at the head in his hand and chewed on his hand like a fool. If it were an ordinary person, he would have to swallow the meat and bones in one bite. But then again, what are you going to chew on me for? Do you want to eat it? Gu Shanhai casually grabbed a handful of dirt and stuffed it into the head's mouth. This thing can really eat anything. Just chew it and swallow it. Gu Shanhai raised his head, wanting to see how this thing fell out of his esophagus. Mimir neither eats nor drinks water, because if it enters his mouth and is swallowed, it will fall out again. Holy shit! It's gone! Gu Shanhai looked shocked. He didn't expect this thing to really eat the soil. What's more important is that he found that he could also absorb it. Just now, Mimir's neck grew slightly. The instinct to eat. Gu Shanhai saw the reason instantly. Mimir is just ahead now. But if he gets enough nutrients, the opponent can not only return to his original giant appearance, but also gain powerful power. And this is just some insignificant corrosive matter left behind after the pollution has left. It's interesting. It seems to be combined with the power of the giant race itself, making it immortal? Gu Shanhai also narrowed his eyes. The giants themselves are very powerful. Otherwise, how could they compete with the Asa and Warner Protoss? What's more, in the final Doomsday battle, the giants will still be the main fighting force. Except for weaknesses. There are no other problems. But now that I have the power of immortality, should I still burn? Under normal circumstances, he would definitely not be burned to death. But if Gu Shanhai wanted to kill him, it would be relatively easy. It must be burned. After all, I promised Mimir that his ashes must be arranged for him. But whether he will be burned to death is another matter. Then just split it into two. One can be regarded as a physical Buddha, and the other can be regarded as a relic. The immortality that inherited the powerful power is preserved as a physical body, and its hidden wisdom is as a relic. The plan was quickly hatched. After taking a look at the head, I felt that it didn't look good. He was pretending to be a virtuous monk, but it turned out to be a good thing for you. He looked like a ferocious zombie, and it didn't look like a serious thing at all. It's okay. I'll give you a beautification patch. Gu Shanhai's movements were quick, and Mimir was transformed into a kind look. Immediately afterwards, with a flick of the fire in his hand, the head that was originally struggling like crazy calmed down instantly, and that sense of calm made people feel comfortable. It's done. This looks like an eminent monk. Then, the burning process began, during which Gu Shanhai became a golden body. The scorching fire caused the wisdom hidden in Mimir to be forcibly evaporated, turning into drops of liquid like mercury. The originally plump head has gradually dried up. Fortunately, the beautification patch is very effective. Although it has turned into a skeleton, it also has a kind filter, and does not appear to be gloomy or scary. Of course, if the beautification patch fails, that's another matter. No one will be confused after seeing this appearance. Gu Shanhai was also very satisfied with this, and then collected all the mercury-like liquid, made it into a solid, and rolled it into a round shape, turning it into something similar to a silver-white water ball. This is the relic he refined. Come on! Open your mouth! Gu Shanhai forcefully opened Mimir's mouth and stuffed it in. These two are a combination. Gu Shanhai had already made up the story, in which the eminent monk became possessed by a demon and then used the relics to suppress himself. Then see if there is any unlucky person digging Mimir's grave. Of course, it doesn't matter if you dig it, as long as you don't take out the relics. There will be no problem. But once the relic is separated from the physical Buddha, the coating that Gu Shanhai put on Mimir's body will be removed, allowing it to regain its original power. And because he lost his intelligence, he became only capable of killing terrifying demon corpses. The relic is a piece of equipment. Carrying it with you can enhance learning efficiency, increase thinking logic, improve thinking ability, etc., which is equivalent to giving it powerful learning and thinking abilities. It does not increase any conspiracy or emotional intelligence experience. It is only useful for learning and research. The effect is a bit poor. Gu Shanhai took a look at the wisdom effect of this relic. To quantify it, it is probably intelligence plus 10, learning efficiency plus 100, thinking logic plus 100, and thinking ability plus 100. This little increase is completely unable to match its worth. Of course, this is just a trivial function. After all, the real function is to suppress Mimir. His grave must also be repaired. Otherwise, if I make up such a high-level story and use the urn so well, I would end up with a small grave, which would seem a bit unworthy. Gu Shanhai looked up and down, and then took out a design drawing. Just in time. Let's reproduce the fountain of knowledge and wisdom. Unfortunately, there is no spring water, but the waterless version is not impossible. They are all pirated copies anyway. He did what he said, and soon the traces of burial and burning were cleaned up by Gu Shanhai. In order to make it look better, Gu Shanhai even redesigned some exaggerated carvings. They even took a section of the burned branch of the world tree, which was everywhere. Then the urn is stuffed into the branch, using the pattern of stars over the moon, so that people can tell at a glance that this thing is a treasure. It's done. Next, set up a barrier and leave. After Gu Shanhai inspected it, he was still very satisfied with it. As for why he didn't follow Mimir's will and deliberately left it as a trap for future generations. In this regard, Gu Shanhai said that if things that cannot be solved now can be solved by future generations, he believes in the abilities of future generations. It doesn't matter if future generations can't solve it, because there are still more generations to come. He is only responsible for being happy now, and what happens in the future is none of his business. Anyway, even if there is a thunderstorm, it will not affect him. With a little luck, he might even get to see some fun. Chapter 6:18 The Long Winter. The Final Farewell. The Frost Star is about to return, plunging the new world into a long winter once again. We need to complete winter preparations as soon as possible, Vidal said. Today's new world is no longer the new world 3 years ago. With Vidal's control, a large number of races have been created by him. If you look closely, he now has 3 parts of Odin's demeanor. With the perfection of the race, in the new world, he is the new God King. Mimir and Gu, will they come back together? Vala asked worriedly at this time. Except for leaving a message in the first month after leaving. No news came back in all subsequent periods. This made them very worried. Maybe. There aren't too many dangers in the old world. And Gu's strength is not weak. So there is no need to worry about something happening to him. Vidal didn't know much about the situation. But Gu Shanhai's methods were obvious to all. Even the poisonous dragon Nidhogg has been trained to be submissive by the opponent. Who else can threaten him? Worrying about Gu Shanhai is better than worrying about him. The reason why there is no news, Vidal thinks, is more likely because he was delayed by research. He also knew about Gu Shanhai and Mimir's situation when they were studying Frostar. And they basically stayed in the laboratory without leaving. Not to mention this matter, what we have to do now is to concentrate on dealing with the long winter, Vidal said. The emergence of the Frostar caused them to have 2 winters every 3 years. One was a normal winter, which came every year, and the other was the Frostar, which happened once every 3 years. Therefore, their calendar also changed. Nor did they call Frostar the winter of Fimbul, but the long winter. Food and cotton clothes have been arranged, but the wooden houses may not be able to effectively withstand the cold. We don't have enough wood for fuel either. When Vala heard this, his face fell. And this matter was not that easy to solve. They have experienced 3 winters. But those 3 winters were, firstly, because the number of newly born races was small, so they could make arrangements easily. And secondly, they were not that cold. Because of the climate, it didn't even snow. You just need to dress warmly to maintain your body temperature. Basically, there won't be any problems. Even if you freeze, you won't die. But Frostar is different. Once it returns, you can imagine the wind and snow it will bring. If we deal with it in the past way, these races will definitely die. After 3 years, the minimum guarantee is 3 children, and the youngest may be just born. This cannot be guaranteed in severe cold weather. It might lead to the extinction of a race. Actually, if they are allowed to enter the shelter, Chang'an will not be able to threaten them at all. Vala hesitated and expressed his thoughts. No. What will we do if Mimir and Gu come back? Vidal rejected Vala's proposal. He knew that Vala's intention was not to allow these races to enter the core area, but to live in the outer areas. The main reason is to take advantage of the constant temperature function of the base to survive the long winter. Deep down in his heart, he also knew that this was the best thing to do. And with their constraints, there wouldn't be any big problems. When the number increased in the future, they would be able to deal with the Frostar on their own. However, I think so. But I am afraid of everything. What if Gu Shanhai and Mimir come back? Seeing this scene, Mimir might not say anything, but Gu Shanhai would definitely say something. Vala couldn't solve it either. He knew Mimir's situation, but he couldn't figure out Gu Shanhai's thoughts. Their contact with Gu Shanhai was actually not very deep, so it was hard for him to make rash guesses about his personality. It would be better if Gu Shanhai didn't care. But if he really drove people away, they wouldn't be well prepared to deal with it. As for resistance, there is still a sense of right and wrong. The entire base was built by Gu Shanhai, and he has allowed them to have enough food and clothing over the years. But for this kind of thing, they go against each other. Doesn't it seem that they are ungrateful? After all, neither side is wrong. If he is willing to lend it to them, it is a help. But if he is not willing, it is normal. He built it himself, and they did not contribute at all. How dare he say that? Mimir should be able to offer some advice. Vala still wanted to count on Mimir. After all, Mimir still had a relationship with Gu Shanhai. Okay, but I don't want to gamble. Vidal felt that the order of things was right. If Gu Shanhai came back during the long winter this time, he would beg Gu Shanhai to agree. But people must not be let in without Gu Shanhai's permission. Even with Mimir's help, Mimir is not the owner of this shelter, and is not qualified to agree for Gu Shanhai. Even they are staying temporarily. In fact, Vidal had long thought about building a palace of his own. But he had too few manpower, and had to give up in the end. Okay, I will arrange it as soon as possible. Vala was still very unwilling. But because of Vidal's majesty, he finally agreed. There is nothing inherently wrong on either side, but differences arise due to ideological reasons. Vala quickly left to get busy. After Vidal did not agree to his proposal, he naturally had to consider how to deal with the cold winter. Actually, you can put them in a shelter. A familiar voice came over, which made the distressed Vidal couldn't help but perk up. Gu, you are back. Vidal turned around and saw the long-lost figure. But for the next moment, he was stunned because he did not see the familiar head in Gu Shenhai's hand. Mimir, didn't he come back with you? Vidal had a bad feeling in his heart. 2 years ago, he stayed in the fountain of knowledge and wisdom. No one will disturb him again, Gu Shenhai said calmly. When these words fell into Vidal's ears, they naturally represented death. Has he entered eternal sleep? Vidal was still a little unbelievable. So, after we left, his physical condition deteriorated sharply. And then Gu Shenhai briefly summarized Mimir's situation. Vidal listened very quietly, and did not say anything. Gu, thank you for sending Mimir back. In fact, his destination has always been the fountain of knowledge and wisdom. Vidal finally sighed. What has happened, and nothing can be undone. He also agreed with Gu Shenhai's approach. But after losing Mimir, Vidal knew that everything in the future would have to depend on himself. In the past, with Mimir's help, relying on his knowledge and wisdom, he could grow better. But now, he could only rely on himself to explore everything. We are all friends. As we should. Naturally, Gu Shenhai did not talk about the physical Buddha and the relics. Instead, he went through a lot of embellishments and omissions. So the result is the same. But many details in the middle are not only changed beyond recognition, but also upside down. Black and white. Vidal may go take a look. But he will never pry open Mimir's grave or urn. So there is no need to worry about what the other party will find. You just said that you agreed to allow other races to temporarily use the shelter. Will that affect you? Vidal said. At this time, he was also suppressing his sadness. Since it was irreversible, he would just focus on the present. Okay. In fact, this shelter was originally reserved for you. When I come back, I just want to say goodbye to you, Gu Shenhai said. Farewell? Where do you want to go? Did something happen? Vidal did not expect that he would hear 2 pieces of bad news in one day. You should know the plan of the double-star celestial body. Even if you don't know, you can still understand the meaning from the name. I need to build another celestial body to assist and suppress the frost star. This is not the right place to do this. If danger occurs, I don't know what the outcome will be. But one thing is certain. These races you created will definitely not be able to survive. Gu Shenhai said calmly that he had seen these races, which were the races that formed civilizations in various fragmented worlds in later generations. In their blood, they all have the nails to build the Najurfa, the great ship of the underworld. And it is precisely because of these that they can take them through the world. After the world collapsed, they were able to survive unharmed and disperse to other worlds. Okay, then I'll treat you to a drink when you come back. Vidal said this a bit reluctantly. He always felt that this matter would not be so simple. Otherwise, it would be impossible for Gu Shenhai to come back specially. He could just come back as if he didn't need to convey the news before and just take action directly. Well, I remember. You owe me a drink, Gu Shenhai also said with a smile. In fact, the reason why he did not build a hunting star in the base of the new world was very simple. That is, the materials were not convenient to produce. If Vidal knew that he used the corpses of Odin, Thor, Frey, etc. to build it, he might have to fight Gu Shenhai. What's more, he also smashed the Hall of Silver, the High Throne, the Ring of the Nibelungs, etc. into it. Of course, Vidal might also be able to restrain himself. But even if he restrained himself, he would still have knots in his heart. Gu Shenhai's behavior was tantamount to using the corpses of his whole family to build a wall, and building it in front of Vidal. The other party tolerated it, which was for the sake of the overall situation. But it did not mean that he could accept it. When do you plan to leave? Vidal thought as he bid Gu Shenhai farewell. No need to make arrangements. I'll leave now, and leave the shelter to you. I hope that the next time I see you, the new world has become a brand new civilization. Gu Shenhai interrupted Vidal. Okay. Vidal looked at Gu Shenhai's disappearing figure, and finally said this word to express his attitude. He didn't even know if Gu Shenhai heard it. Chapter 619, Brand and Fire. The Rise of Twin Stars. No wonder you said you were not you back then. Gu Shenhai looked at a shadow in front of him. This shadow is like Odin. But it is not Odin. It's just the traces that Gu Shenhai extracted from the past. and finally the shadow that he needed out. But this is only part of the Hunter King. Not all of it. The composition of the hunting star essentially has only two parts. One is fire, and the other is brand. It turns out that the technology one used is related to Valhalla. Gu Shenhai has already gathered the materials and technology, and only needs to assemble it. The process is actually not difficult. The real difficulty is matching up with Frost Star. It's a pity that the memory of the Hunter King has disappeared. Otherwise, you might still be able to chat with me after you were created. Gu Shenhai felt a little regretful about this. I also found the 8-legged horse for you. The body is a bit mutilated, but it doesn't matter. I'm the best at sewing and mending. Your 2 wolves have been completely eaten, and I can't even try to make up for it. Oh, and your crow. But it doesn't matter. I also have 2 wolves here. Although they are untamed wolves, they are enough. It just so happens that Hattie and Skull are here. Let's make a living. Gu Shenhai was talking nonchalantly. And by the way, he took out the 2 evil wolves Hattie and Skull, and stuffed them directly into the blurry shadow. In addition, 8-legged horses were also stuffed in. As a big imprint, it's normal to bring your own stuff. As for Gungnir's gun, it is of no use to you. It will break down over time. So I will keep it, and see if there is a chance to give it to the protagonist later. This can also be regarded as making this thing useful in other places. The world shines brightly. Gu Shenhai secretly bought all the equipment without any intention of giving it back. But I am still very honest, and I have left you the greatest treasure. That's right. It's the Ring of the Nibelungs. You didn't wear it when you were alive, but you might as well wear it after death. It's a ring that can control the supreme power, although it's of no use to you. Gu Shenhai took out the Nibelung ring and put the gold ring on Shadow's hand. After putting it on, Shadow's originally fuzzy figure gradually solidified, and the slightly scrawled facial features and face could vaguely be seen to be that of Odin. But it's not Odin who is blind in one eye, but Odin who has both eyes intact. The King of Hunters has succeeded. All he needs to do next is to stuff it into the hunting star and wait for it to grow and develop. The current King of Hunters, Brand, is at best an embryo. Gu Shenhai had no way to ripen it because the cost was too high. He might as well spend some time and let him grow slowly. The next step is fire. If the Brand of Hunter King is the software, then Shinhua is the hardware. The flames not only include the part that serves as a furnace to burn the souls of strong men to provide energy for themselves, but also include huge external structures built from the Hall of Silver, the Supreme Throne, etc. I have completed the transformation of the fire before. I just need to light it. It takes some time to brand him. But Shinhua is different. He is looking for materials and building it at the same time. It is a celestial body in the first place. Gu Shenhai can slowly build the parts like an assembly line and finally assemble them. This is how to pass the time on the road. So when he came back to the new world to meet the doll, it was almost complete. The only thing left to do was to build a wall and throw in corpses. Initial operation and maintenance require a large amount of energy. The good news is that these corpses left over from Ragnarok are more than enough as energy sources. The bad news is that they have no souls, and can only be used in the early stages. In the later stages, when the Hunter King wakes up, these soulless fuels will be eliminated. Fortunately, this is not something Gu Shenhai needs to consider, because if he wants to reach that point, the world will have already collapsed. At that time, the binary celestial body will officially enter operation, and begin to form a huge gravitational force according to the set plot, stabilizing the entire world community. At that time, it is truly running. The current operation is actually more of a trial operation. Compared with the hunting stars of later generations, they are simply too small. Gu Shenhai looked at the black supergiant sphere in front of him. There was a palace on the sphere. This palace is the Silver Hall. He came to the Hall of Silver with the brand that was still in its embryonic stage. The Hunter King. Because of the ashes, the Silver Hall turned black. Exactly the same color as the hunting star. From today on, you will sit here. When you are fully developed, you can leave and form your ghost hunter. Gu Shenhai pressed the shadow on the Supreme Throne. The Supreme Throne at this time cannot take effect because it requires a magic tidal radiation zone. It's just that this thing requires the structure of a binary celestial body. Even the hunting star has not yet launched. So where can the magic tidal radiation zone come from? After Shadow sat down, 2 huge wolves appeared at his feet. That's right. It's not the Soul Hound in the previous timeline. After all, the binary celestial body in the previous timeline was not built by Gu Shenhai and has nothing to do with him. Although they are both binary celestial bodies, they are fundamentally different, even if they look exactly the same. As for who created the binary celestial body in the previous timeline and where it came from, Gu Shanhai didn't care at all. So what can I do if I care? Anyway, he has replaced him now. No matter how powerful the other party is, what else can he do? In addition to the two soul wolves, the figure of the eight-legged horse also followed closely behind. However, compared to the soul wolf, the figure of the eight-legged horse appeared bleaker and more transparent, and looked a bit stunted. This is also a normal situation. After all, the soul wolf is made of two evil wolves, Hattie and Skull, who chase the sun and the moon. More importantly, they are alive. The eight-legged horse Repnir has only a corpse without a soul, which is equivalent to being born with insufficient development. Hey, by the way, the eight-legged horse Repnir is the uncle of the evil wolves Hattie and Skull. Gu Shanhai suddenly thought of this matter. After all, the eight-legged horse Repnir is the son of Loki and a contemporary of the demon wolf Fenrir. As the descendants of the demon wolf Fenrir, Hattie and Skull are naturally nephews. A horse and two wolves can actually be related by blood. This kind of chaos is really interesting. Gu Shanhai couldn't help but complain. He can only say that Loki is really powerful. If it were an ordinary god, he would really not be able to do it. This kind of thing comes out. I guess it can only be found in Greek mythology. Check it. If there is no problem, you can start the fire. After installing the software onto the hardware, all that's left is to start it up and run it to see if there are any problems. If there are no problems, Gu Shenhai is ready to start assembling the binary celestial body. The inspection was completed quickly, and no issues were found. After all, it was built by him himself. If there is something wrong, something is wrong. The reason why he checked again is because of his cautious habits. If there is no problem, it is easy to talk about anything. If there is a problem, it will be a big problem. The firewood was stored in the core area of the hunting star. After Gu Shenhai arrived, he took out corpses from his arms. The first one to be burned was Odin. The Hunter King was a shadow made from Odin's traces, not Odin himself. The moment Odin's body was thrown into the fire, the dim fire suddenly rose up and burst into bright light. Then came the corpses of Fenrir, Thor, Jormungandr and other monsters, gods, and giants. More and more corpses were thrown into it, making the fire even hotter. After reaching a certain limit, the brand system starts simultaneously, making the brand and fire merge into one, becoming the hunting star. After the hunting star was born, the originally set program was activated. This program is the double star celestial structure. Therefore, the hunting star slowly lifted into the sky and began to search for the location of the frost star. Seeing this, Gu Shenhai manually adjusted the coordinates, and the hunting star instantly locked onto the frost star, which had returned to the new world and was preparing for a new round of revolution. Then it turned into a stream of light and began to move towards the frost star. The doll also looked a little tired. The arrival of frost star caused the temperature to drop sharply. Fortunately, Gu Shanhai handed over the shelter to him, and he brought in all the races. It took a long time to arrange this. There were only 3 Asa Protoss present during the process, which made it extremely busy. There should be no need to worry about the long winter this time. Although the doll was tired, there was a rare relief on his face. Immediately when he was about to find Vala and the others and discuss what to do next, he saw a ray of light flashing across the sky. Is this? The doll was a little confused. Before he could investigate, he suddenly discovered that this ray of light was heading towards the frost star. Before he could even stop it, he saw the two celestial bodies tightly entangled together. Is this a hunting star? Gu. He succeeded and successfully perfected the structure of a binary star. The doll could clearly feel the rise in temperature because the frost star was suppressed. Later, he also felt a brand new power emerging from the binary celestial body. He knew that this was the energy that Gu Shenhai called magic. If the races under his command absorb and use it, they will have enough power to ensure their own survival. The double star celestial body has been completed. Where did he go? The doll was a little worried. According to normal circumstances, Gu Shenhai should have returned by this time. After the new world settles down, I will go find him and see Mimir by the way. The doll wanted to act now, but he knew he couldn't, because the race he created needed him. And this new world also had responsibilities that he needed to bear. Chapter 620, The Great Master of All Fate and Wonderful Dharma. With the completion of the double star celestial body, both the old world and the new world were immersed in a glorious light. Majestic magic power continued to emerge, and the entire world was within the radiation zone at this time. The original fire that burned the world was also extinguished by this great force. The world-destroying frost, which had just been born for a short period of time, was also suppressed because of the strong fire. So in this balance, the long winter that Vidal was prepared for disappeared, and a normal climate returned. At this time, Gu Shanhai did not pay so much attention. He was currently in the binary celestial body, and countless knowledge poured into his mind. I'm sorry. How can I stop this BG? Gu Shanhai succeeded in projecting the past through memory, and the technology got stuck. He was only one step away from being able to step into infinity and leave transcendently. But now it involves a very serious problem. That is, the knowledge is refreshed too fast, and countless experiences are experienced every second. Timeline coverage. His future self is projecting memories to him crazily, and based on the original memories, they begin to overlap and grow. The last step. Just the last step. Gu Shanhai gritted his teeth, and the skin on his body began to crack. Fortunately, he had quick eyesight and quick hands, and quickly smoothed it out, and created an excellent isolation place for himself. Ensure that your own power is not leaked. Then quickly digest and absorb all the knowledge. Fortunately, I have transformed a double star before, and stayed here to break through. Otherwise, I might not be able to find a suitable place. Gu Shanhai was thinking about this. Immediately, his mind sank into it, not caring about things outside the binary stars. I don't know how long time passed, but Gu Shanhai suddenly felt a violent vibration. This feeling forced him to recover from the endless knowledge projected back. The world is falling apart? With a sweep of his spiritual consciousness, he could see some reason, but to him, it was no longer a big deal. The 5 books he obtained in the previous copy have now been completely digested and absorbed by him, and he already knows how to take this final step. It still lacks a little accumulation. If Gu Shanhai now wants to break through the bottleneck and achieve infinite achievements and transcendence, it is not impossible. The only drawback is that it is not stable enough. The safest way is to wait. Wait until such an opportunity arises. Gu Shanhai actually already knew where this opportunity was. That is, to stop. From the past to the future. And from the future to the past. That's right. It was the time point when I traveled to this world. Through accumulation, he finally took advantage of the opportunity to directly complete the conclusion of his own timeline. After the completion of the timeline, it is the first step of infinite time. In his plan, there are 3 cornerstones, namely time, space, and energy. After mastering the most difficult time, everything will not be a problem. You can be immersed in infinite time in a moment, and you can also compress infinite time into a moment. Consolidating the past, present, and future is the beginning of everything. Then, wait. Gu Shanhai didn't want to take risks. After all, it was the last step. He could afford to wait. There was no need to make mistakes for the sake of quick success. At this moment, time passed quickly in his senses. He could sense the birth of the Hunter King, and could also see him hunting strong men and throwing their souls into the fire as fuel. He also sensed the collapse of the new world led by Vidal, and could also sense that in order to continue the continuation of various races, he set various races out of the new world through binary celestial bodies, and dispersed them into various fragmented worlds, so as to continue the inheritance of civilization. Then the world community was born, and with the help of the double star celestial body and the Hunter King, it continued to expand stably, giving Gu Shanhai a feeling of a changing world. Only this time, the leaves of the world tree did not arrive, and everything changed. The elves were destroyed. Fate? But on the other side, Gu Shanhai's wonderful fate method and the lotus of fate for the next life were suddenly activated, and a certain fateful meme began to be born. This was not due to him alone, but also to the great cause and effect of Ji Shan, who was sealed in the magic weapon. One is like a mountain or a sea, and the other is like an abyss or a prison. 2 huge causes and effects forcibly took root in the timeline. This can be regarded as a cooperation between the 2 parties to ensure that the birth of Ji Shan and Jiang Hai, Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry, and the Netheril Empire will not be covered by the butterfly effect. What Gu Shanhai was worried about was not that they would not appear, but that their ancestors would die due to the butterfly effect. After all, if he did not have enough cause and effect in the past, He could not guarantee the inheritance of the Five Elements sect, whether it is Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry or the Netheril Empire. They are essentially part of the Five Elements sect and belong to the Master-Disciple line. As this cause and effect falls, more causes and effects and fates continue to light up in the law of wonderful destiny. This is not in the past, but across all timelines of ancient and modern times. This means that Gu Shanhai is reining in himself little by little. And it also means that he is getting closer to the time point when he will travel to this world. It's a pity that he can't leave, because as he becomes stronger, the technology of memory projection into the past has become a coordinate anchor in the timeline. It drives him towards continuous improvement towards the cornerstone of infinite time. Unless he successfully condenses one of the three infinities, he will not be able to stop it all. Because it's not just him who exerts force, but also him in the past, him in the future, and him now. Gu Shanhai suddenly woke up with the sound of a baby crying in the delivery room. The sound was very distant, but it was extremely clear in Gu Shanhai's ears. That was after he was born. The first breath of air he inhaled would rush to his throat, violently impacting his vocal cords, causing them to vibrate, and then make a cry-like sound. The opportunity has arrived! Gu Shanhai's body was calm. Countless people in the entire timeline had gathered at the same point in time at this moment. The timeline is completed. And now, he has completed the cornerstone of infinite time. At this moment, his time collapsed into infinity. At the same time, he completed the infinity of space and energy simultaneously. Because time had no meaning to him. The wonderful method and conditions are really strange. Thousands of me. But I am not thousands. At this moment, Gu Shanhai's vision continued to improve. And he calmly entered the level of transcendence. Who would have thought that a time traveler could be divided into so many parts? Damn it. Every one of them is a ripoff. Gu Shanhai understands that everything about him is helped and taken care of by him and me. Naturally to help him transcend. In other words, if one me is transcendent, countless me will be transcendent.